Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So today's Tuesday, October 7th, and Candice Owens went there. I want to do just a brief introduction to this, but so I had a rare something that happened where I finished my video yesterday and I didn't have anything up on my toolbar. Like I had no video clips, I had no idea what I was going to talk about today. Like I had nothing. And I thought maybe this would be the day where I would not post about Charlie Kirk, which was somebody who I didn't know who was over a month ago, and now I've made videos almost for a consecutive month now, I guess. It's been a month. Um, I was wondering if Monica or Erika Kirk was going to, I don't know why I still calling her Monica, so weird, was going to post her 666th post on Instagram, so I had that to look forward to at some point, or maybe never, because we'll see. It's a tough one for her to do, right? Based on everything. But I went shopping and I was just listening, kind of not really listening, just, I had it on, sort of listening as I was driving home to some sports thing. And YouTube autoplayed into 4 minutes into Candice Owens' show where she just lays into Turning Point USA and even Trump to whatever extent. And she is definitely the most interesting, or she is the catalyst to the what's become, would be otherwise a dead story, right? Usually, right now, this is when the story dies. It's you never know anything. Like I've been doing this now since a job, doing this as a job since 2014, so 10 years, and it's been 10 intense years. I was in an extended stay in India at the time. I went through a divorce, all these things. I remarried, all these, major shifts in my life. My kids all have now left the house. I'm an empty nester. Just all these things that have happened personally. The spiritual organization I belong to turned into, like, I would call it a cult, but it's just so stupid. It's all these things that you guys probably most of you know about. And COVID happened, and there's all these whatever. Trump got elected a second time. It's been epic things, like epic, day-to-day stories and the rest of these things. And so usually when you have a story like this, there are the theories, and let's go through the theories. I want to do that at some point here. So, like, this is what the world we live in now. So this character named Charlie Kirk emerged for many of us. We got first contact with him on September 10th, but for many people, they knew about him for a year or two or maybe more, right? And just depending on who you are. But you have this thing what I call the show. And all these people are in the show. I'm not in the show, right? For obvious reasons. The show is all the famous mainstream media people. Politics, sports, actors, whatever it might be, wealthy people, the people who are in a different sort of level. And now, like, you have some people on the internet that become part of the show. You have internet influencers who, because of their massive following, become part of the show, where the show starts acknowledging people. Now, for the truth community, and Alex Jones is a shill, but was when he started to get interviewed by Megyn Kelly, and when she was on NBC News, and she did a hit piece on him and Piers Morgan, and they started talking about him, right? They started talking about crazy conspiracy theorists, right? And they started later on QAnon and some of these other things, flat earthers. It was when they started talking about what was going before that. They wouldn't acknowledge that there was millions of people who were getting their news and getting their information from the internet, and they no longer bought into the bullshit official story, right? So, like, it wasn't acknowledged. So they had these people who were part of the show who were acknowledged, right? And so this guy Charlie Kirk was one of these people. He was a part of the show. He was not. He was acknowledged on the news, and people knew about him. He was popular enough, and he had an influence on Trump and whatever it was. And in terms of any of these characters, and Charlie Kirk specifically, we don't know if he's just a real person who grew up with a real Kirk family, right? Like he has siblings and parents. He grew up with these people. and became this, whatever it is that he does, what he did. Going to these college campuses and doing this Charlie Kirk shit, right? Whatever, this Turning Point USA. Like, we don't know if that's like he's a real person. He could be a person who either was recruited by the CIA, or even like a child who was, and maybe not even the CIA, maybe some other secret organization, mind control organization that raises up children for some sort of purpose in the, as an asset in one of these things. So, like, that's within realistic possibilities, because the CIA and governments around the world started to mind control programs, that we knew about in the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. They had literal mind control programs. The TV is a mind control device, right? The internet, these things, right? To influence people. Like, one of the things that people in power always worry about is the mob. What happens when the mob goes apeshit? The French Revolution, various revolutions in countries, Russia and these things, where the ruling class is killed by the people, right? The Communist Revolution in China, where people who are kings and emperors and whatever they are deposed and often killed by an angry mob. Like, so how do we control the mob? So they have done some weird shit to control mobs, right? That's part of what we're talking about here. And so with Charlie Kirk, like, it's a reasonable possibility that this guy wasn't really Charlie Kirk. He was an actor, like I said in my last video. The character of Charlie Kirk was killed. But what about the actor? What about is he still alive, right? And so some of the prevailing theories are that he was a hologram, that, at least in terms of the day he was killed, and that's, that he's still alive. Like, there's that, and that's, within reason. I don't think that that's the case, because to me he's a loose end then, right? What are they going to do with him now? So, but whatever it is. And so the people around him, he's got a religious organization, supposedly political religious organization that he controlled. And, some of the prevailing theories involve people there, like they seem at least complicit in this thing, including his wife, who seems like an actress. Like, she's like insincere in her grief. Are his kids real? Like, so is a marriage real? Like, and, we know that there's Hollywood marriages, and there's been marriages for hundreds of years between royal family members that were arranged, that the people didn't even like each other. They were like, maybe they even did consummate the marriage and have kids because they had to, but they were just, forced to marry someone. There's been arranged marriages now for centuries, and now fake arranged marriages and celebrity marriages and relationships are done to increase a person's popularity. Like, Taylor Swift just did an interview last night with Jimmy Fallon. Like, is her relationship with Travis Kelce real, or is it about some kind of, like, way for them both to gather more fame and support? Like, these things. So there's fake relationships where people will pretend to be married or marry for some strategic reasons. Sometimes the people are gay, like they're like Will Smith and his wife. Like, there's, like, they call it a beard marriage, where somebody marries somebody to pretend that tied that from being gay, right? These things. And so there's all these things that exist in our deceptive society. So we don't know how much of any of this is real. Turning Point is definitely complicit, and there are people who are benefiting, which I'll get into. That, Candice Owens is, revealing things here, and we'll talk about her in just a moment. But all these theories are possibly real. Was he actually shot at all? Because it's a hologram, no. Again, think about, not comparing Charlie Kirk to our JFK, but when JFK was assassinated, which, he was a young president, kind of different, liberal. This was a new thing when liberals were in the weaker position. Conservatives dominated at that time, and the liberals were, they had the hippie movement. And, what he represented, the first Catholic president, these things for people. People loved him. He was young and whatever. And, his assassination, people kind of was like, is that we don't kind of believe in that. It was one of the first kind of things that started the truth community, where people are like, we don't believe the government, right? And that's a big thing when, the government has so much, and not just the government, the media, all of it, right? Where people are like, you're lying to us and the media isn't trying to get the truth. I mean, the president's been killed. And so you think about where we are now, where like all these prevailing theories about everything that people don't believe, anything. Is Charlie Kirk actually, a man? Was he possibly a woman? And, that's like a realistic. I don't believe that's true, but that's an agenda here. There are people who think that Erika's, born a man, right? So he's got big hands, kind of tall, so a little less likely than some other people, but still, it's a possibility. It's a little legitimate possibility because they do shit like that, right? And so, all the way back in the Shakespeare days, where men would play women, they didn't have any women actresses. Women weren't allowed to act. There's that movie Shakespeare in Love that's about that, right? Gwyneth Paltrow plays a man, and, there was all these actors playing women in Shakespeare's play, the plays that are shown in the movie, because that was what was going on, right? So there's all these things, people who are, thinking that they're a woman in a man's body or a man in a woman's body. This is a prevalent thing that's become a big deal in the last, 20 years, last 10 years. Sex change operations that are very, they've put a lot of energy and time into it. Like more money and time have gone into that than like curing cancer. So even they're trying to find ways that men could actually bear a child. That's something that they're working on, right? They've been working on that for a while. And then there's more practical type of theories. Was he shot from behind, maybe, instead of in the front? But very few people believe in the official story. Very few people believe in the lone gunman story. There's people who just believe everything the news says, but that's an ever-shrinking number. And so, like, the trust level we have in the people that have a large say and control in our life is minimal at best, right? People feel like they're poisoning us. What the hell are chemtrails? What are they there? Are they somehow poisoning us? Are they there to block the sun? What are they even doing up there? And they don't acknowledge it, but so many people see it. They look up at the sky and they go, what the fuck are those? It would be otherwise be a clear day out there. And you have these streaks of, chemicals that have like, a rainbow effect, a prismatic effect, right? So these are the things that, are a daily occurrence where people have no faith in what they're hearing from the media and from the government, and then other people on the internet. There's people who are paid shills who, like you're listening to somebody going, well, this could be a legitimate person or this person could be receiving money. And probably is receiving money one way or another, right? People have products, their merch, they're selling, not just merch, but, have paid advertisements. And, so it's just, the truth is just disappearing, fading even more. So, I mean, people agreed upon the truth that wasn't the truth. So I guess it's a step in the right direction, certainly a step in the right direction. But now it's so much, like various things that you have to pick through. All these, it's almost like you're shopping for the truth. It's like you're picking an item off the shelf. All right, I think Charlie Kirk was actually a real person, but he worked for the CIA. Whatever, you know what I mean? That his wife is like these things. Are they Satanists or not? Like that's a big thing. Like there's that aspect. Well, people are supposed to be Christian. Is she throwing up the devil's horns? Is she actually, like she was in that music video? There's all these symbolic things there. All of it, right? So. And so there's these stories, and the stories usually, all right, there's the official story. People call bullshit on the internet. It's covered in mainstream media for a period of time, and then mainstream media drops it. Mainstream media isn't talking about Charlie Kirk anymore. Maybe Fox throws his name out, some kind of weird way. And then there are people who get obsessed with the story, and they keep going. They make videos about it, whatever it might be. And people who are obsessed with it keep the thing going, right? Keep it, If people lose interest in it, like people have lost interest in COVID and people have lost interest in people dying suddenly and having spontaneous cardiac arrest post, vaccine and these other things post-COVID. And so, all these things, right? Like stories fade. And this story would have faded had it not been for one Candice J. Owens, right? Because what's different about a few things that are different about this story, that there's a religious aspect. So Charlie Kirk had an organization. It has 458 employees. So I just did this. I've been wanting to do this So 458 employees, which ChatGPT says Turning Point has. Erika Kirk says that none of them will be fired. And if they were making at its average $50,000 a year, and some are going to be making more, something, I just thought that as an average. They have a $22 million, $900,000 payroll, so a $23 million payroll. So they have to come up with $23 million a year just to pay their employees, right? So they were making $100 million a year in donations, a lot of those coming from Israel. So that's another factor. So this guy was, I mean, there was a genocide going on, and there's a foreign government that's been parasiting, a small foreign country that's been parasiting off of America, and nobody was allowed to talk about it. Like, it was just this thing, and there's people who are obsessed with it. They hate, not just the country, but the people that are there. So people that make up a small population of the world. That people think that these group of people control everything, and they certainly have influence over the media and these other things. And Israel has a lot of influence in America, and so people weren't allowed to talk about it. And all of a sudden, they created this genocide, and liberals of all people got into it, like young liberals, college kids on campus got into it. And Charlie Kirk's job as a supposed Christian shill for Israel was supposed to go in these college campuses and tell these guys it was perfectly okay for this foreign government to take was $30 billion of American money and turn it into a genocide, right? In which they were doing a massive land grab and doing ethnic cleansing. And one of their big things is to talk about the Holocaust. The reason that they get to act this way because they've been persecuted historically, and that they're very defensive people for this reason, and they get to, do things that other groups of people can't do because they're God's chosen people according to their own Bible, to their own Bible that Christian people use, and also because of the Holocaust. But they were doing to these people, these Palestinian people, what they had complained about for years. Somehow they felt like they were still the victims, and they were perpetrating this crime. And Charlie Kirk was supposed to go to these college campuses and bully these kids which I got a clip I want to show of that too. I have 2 video clips I want to show, Candice Owens stuff and a clip of Charlie Kirk that magically appeared in my YouTube, feed. And so, but this is the story, right? It involves Israel, and also this guy's influential to get President Trump, a very controversial person, elected, who himself is going through a hard time because he was implicated in the world's most famous sex offender, certainly the American's most famous sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein, who may or may not have committed suicide, who Trump people were talking about getting to the bottom of this story, and many of people who voted for Trump were hoping that this story would be, we would get the truth of the story. But then as soon as they got into political office, they said, no, the guy didn't get suicide. He did commit suicide, and there's no conspiracy, and there's nothing in the files. And Trump looks guilty as fuck. And right when he has this embarrassing amount of information that was starting to leak out, that was implicating Trump in this connection with this guy, Charlie Kirk gets killed. Like the day, the day after. This creepy birthday message he wrote to Jeffrey Epstein is made public and has been something Trump has denied, but clearly is there. And so all of that happens. And so this thing plays out, and like I said, there's ties to Israel, there's ties to this, all this, stuff that people care about. And that is, newsworthy things. And in all that, his story still would have died. But a former employee / connected person, friend of Charlie Kirk or whatever it is, Candice Owens, who was a famous person, who was part of the show, controlled. I mean, she went along with Trump's fake assassination attempt. But she was friends with Trump. Trump liked her. Trump listened to her. She was, influential in Turning Point USA, but she had turned on Israel. And Israel had turned on her. Well, she had mildly questioned Israel. Israel turned on her. Turning Point dumped her. But she has a far more popular show, especially even now. She gets more views. And she's gone all in on fucking Turning Point and on Trump. And she's calling out things that you never see. So, in my years of covering this, I've been doing this as a job for 10 years. I've been doing this as a person who was interested in truther theory since 2000 and whatever it is, 5 or whatever. I've always been a person that questioned these things. Of course, my spiritual, my becoming a person on a spiritual path also is a part of that, and just who I was in school and whatever it is. And I've been watching the show like in a different way since 2005, whenever I had my sort of realization that we're being lied to and completely punked all the time. And I've never seen an insider like this go after an organization and keep the story alive. And also somebody connected to Trump who's starting to turn on him. So this is a new thing in the show, right? And so you might not like Candice Owens. I understand how it's difficult to listen to her, and people have their negative feelings towards her. But the whole thing's bullshit, right? It's called The Show for a reason. But in this show, we've never seen something like this. And it kind of reached a turning point. Not that I didn't do that. I did not do that on purpose. Yesterday, when she goes all in, it's kind of great. So let's get into it here. So I'm going to jump ahead here. I'm going to go back to the beginning and right after this. And then I'll, cover bits and pieces of this, and I'll fill in some of the story. Because it's, the whole hour is kind of a lot of kind of bombshells she drops in terms of the Turning Point USA. She accuses them of corruption and various things, and basically like money laundering and shit, and then provides some evidence supporting this, right? But here she says, she's talking about how the Turning Point people, see, in this, Turning Point largely exists where people who don't believe the official story, people who believe Christians are being persecuted, people being that all the Trump stuff is fake news, these people believe in conspiracy theories. They believe in truther narratives. They are right-wing truthers, Christian truthers, most of them. They don't buy the official story. And then Charlie Kirk is murdered in very suspicious circumstances with all this evidence saying, hey, this official story is bullshit. And Turning Point saying that you guys, and I'll get to that point here, is saying you guys have to stop talking about this, and if you do, you're disrespecting his wife and his family and his memory by searching for the truth, which is kind of completely fucked up. And their show is horrible now. I mean, I'd be more interested if they would be more successful, because Candice Owens is getting millions of views, and they're getting 5,000 views, 10,000 views, 30,000 views. And so, they have this massive organization that just has millions of dollars just in payroll, right? Like, so just, to understand that, I mean, whatever the thing is, they have to come up with a certain amount of money just to pay everybody that works there. And they're no longer producing a quality product. And so, in that, she's talked about this, what she called David Hagen, and we'll get back to that in a moment. But here,
incarnate, okay? Truth is truth. It is always appropriate. Another one of these talking points that are coming out is people are doing this for clicks. They're motivated by money. Do you guys understand the tens of millions of dollars that Turning Point USA made in the 2 weeks following Charlie Kirk's assassination? It would be insane for a person to suggest that if a random guy on YouTube catches 1 million views discussing ballistics, which there have been many gun guys.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to this David Hagen thing here. But, to understand this, yeah, everybody's going for clicks. Like, that's how this fucking business works, right? So really it comes down to, what are you willing to do for clicks? Like, are you willing to lie and deceive your audience? And Turning Point and Charlie Kirk certainly were, because they were, promoting genocide, and they were talking about Trump and promoting something where Trump, the fake assassination attempt on Trump, all the things that they did, all the stuff, the lies behind Trump. And Candice Owens was as well. She was a Trump supporter. Not so much now, but she's still not coming out about the fake assassination Trump, or the fact that, even though she covers Jeffrey Epstein, knows that Trump is complicit. She's hinted, at some of that. but she's not. I mean, so these are people who are willing to lie to their audience to push an agenda, a political agenda, a religious agenda, whatever it might be, right? So that's the difference. Like everyone wants clicks. We have to think about the titles, the thumbnail. Like when you're presenting shit on the internet, you're competing against people who are making up sensationalistic bullshit so that they can get, and they know they're lying to their audience just so they can get clicks. They're doing things that are going to attract people, and you have to compete with that. Like you have to, if you're telling the truth, you have to compete with sensationalistic lies, right? And so, it's something, and I'm not a businessman, and I'm not I don't give a shit, right? So, if I was better at that part, and I put more effort into that part, I'd get more views and whatever it is. But, presenting the truth or at least something that you believe in, the truth that you believe in. When you're not making shit up because you're pandering to an audience, or you're presenting something so you can get more clicks or whatever, whatever you're getting from that. Charlie Kirk and his wife and all those people did that, right? That's why people are like, ick, and they did in such an obvious way. They had that fucking gross celebration with Trump, right? And so let's go back to the beginning here.
Turning Point USA executives, and I'll say seems, are not even remotely interested in challenging that official narrative. They're not interested in challenging it publicly, at least. In fact, I think it was an ex-user that pointed out, he put it rather bluntly when he said, so they want us to forgive Tyler Robinson, but to attack the people that are trying to solve the murder of Charlie Kirk?
So that's a very valid point. So within the context of the framework of this thing, Turning Point's content sucks. And Candice Owens has so much more energy because she has, like, the majority of people are interested in not the official story, right? I don't know if you guys, that's my guinea fowl outside. That's their alarm bell. And it happens like all the time. We have guinea fowl for the first time. Kind of cool. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it's loud right outside the window. And so the majority of people are interested in the people combating the official story, right? That's the majority of people. They are, they don't want the official story. Like, people don't tune into mainstream media anymore. And so Turning Point is fucked, like, in terms of their viewership, because they have people who are definitely, whatever you want to call partial truth or truth or adjacent, people who are not believing in the official story, but are, being told by Turning Point, no, there's nothing to see here. And so their channel is tanking, their business is tanking because they don't have a star anymore. They have a massive payroll, and he was about to break from Israel, and they get a lot of their money from Israel, but they need people to like them and like the show. People have turned on Israel now, Republicans as well. So you have Democrats and Republicans, and like, this stuff isn't going to fucking fly anymore. There was this kid that's been to the Wailing Wall, and he had a weird name or whatever. Some young kid was trying to take over and go, be the new Charlie Kirk. But I mean, this whole thing, and going to college campuses and telling these kids that now Israel's being implicated with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, and so they're in a horrible position because they are trying to reverse themselves from Charlie's last month or so where he was being attacked by Israel, and they can't go do the same thing they used to do and have people like them, especially now since his wife's been so weird and all these things, right? And so for them to come out and say, oh, we forgive the shooter, this lone shooter, but anybody who's going after, looking into this narrative and saying it's not true, you're the fucking problem, and we're not going to forgive you for seeking the truth about Charlie's death, right? So, like, that's a legitimate point, right? It's like, and it's not going to fly. And so,
Like, that's not right. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. Of threats of lawsuits. We're collecting evidence of it. What are we even talking about? And I want to say that what's been bothering me in particular are the micro lies. It seems that they're suddenly in the business of telling micro lies, tiny little misrepresentations, tiny little half truths that right out of the gate seems altogether unnecessary. It really makes me wonder, who are they protecting exactly? You'll see oftentimes they and other influencers will invoke Erika as the reason that it's not appropriate to ask questions. It's just not appropriate while Erika is still mourning for you guys to ask any questions. And I'm just going to come back at you with some common sense. What sort of widow wouldn't want people to investigate the assassination of their husband? She has not explicitly said that, but the influencers are invoking that.
and so if you've seen their show, and she has these clips of people throughout here, and some of them are attacking her, and some of it is there's some weird religious guy at the end of it. But some of these people are executives within Turning Point. Now they have to go after Candice Owens. But it's unfortunate for them. I mean, they're in a shitty position because she's getting millions of views and they're getting nothing. And people who are viewing their stuff are commenting, this isn't right. Like, you guys are, they're people, some of their views are oppositional views, right? So if they're getting 30,000 views and 15,000 of the people are thinking their position here is full of shit, right? And so she was talking about David Hogg. Let me see if she talks about it here.
Right? They're invoking, like, it's not appropriate right now for people to be asking questions. That's what I mean when I say they are David Hogging us, okay? You could also use another example, somebody that was on the right, Kyle Khrushchev. What is that?
Okay, so this is an old Israeli thing. This is an old thing where, I've talked about this in the beginning. So when they first started to do these types of things, where there are these shootings, especially shootings of kids, classroom shootings, and these other things. But this has gone on for a very long time. It started with, when I started covering it, all the way back to 9/11. And, in those cases, oftentimes the people who are grieving didn't agree with the government or the official story. But what they're doing is having victim consciousness, right? And so it's also a part of this idea of problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem, and then there's a reaction, and then they give you the solution, right? And the solution is always almost 100% about you losing some rights, right? So you losing something. And so whoever gets to be the victim, who gets to be outraged because they were the victim, they were victimized, or the people who survive the victims, and they get to go after, in some cases, your guns, right? That's a common stream or thread that's been around for a while. But they're the victim, they're outraged. Now Trump's going after crazy left-wing violence, right? And Charlie Kirk people are talking about that. Like, so, Trump is maybe going a sideways, reverse way of going after your guns. Who knows what he's doing, because he's a piece of shit. Like, he's much worse than Biden or these people in the amount of stuff he's been able to do. Trump has just, railroaded, it was ramrodded over the, Constitution, these things, and it's just, and being backed by people who call themselves patriots, right? So it's completely fucked. But they're always going for victim consciousness. So what she's calling about David Hoggin is, you don't get to talk about this because something bad was done to me. You don't get to question me. You can't call me a crisis actor. You can't say any of these things. Trump did it with his fake assassination attempt, which was totally WWE. It was so fucking obvious. And all the people that claim to be truthers, for the most part, like, they didn't talk about it. And I had no idea about it till one of my viewers said, I watched 60 different truthers or so, and only 3 of them are questioning it, and you're the only one who's saying it's totally fake. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? Like, it's so obvious, right? It's so, I called it Ketchup Gate and Band-Aid Gate, right? So when you have people, like, I just want to talk about Candice Owens and Tucker Carlson. So Candice Owens is probably the best one of these shills. These people are part of this show in terms of she's now questioning Trump, but not like enough. right? Not like, it should be. I mean, he's a total piece of shit because that's what they should be saying. Tucker Carlson has hinted at it. And so, everybody has their capacity and their whatever, their role to play. I mean, these people are all part of the show. But you don't see this very often where somebody is reversing themselves, not in a way that goes along with the official story. So Candice Owens, in terms of, the quality of her, whatever it is that she's putting out there, she's speaking truth about Israel, which is important. And she's, speaking truth about Charlie Kirk and maybe not truth, but, things that go along with truther narratives about Charlie Kirk and the assassination. And now hinting at Trump, right? And so, but the David Hogging thing, like for her to really be, this is a real thing that she's talking about, but it's better the way I'm explaining it. It's about victim consciousness and who gets to claim, oh, I'm the aggrieved person, and who gets to shut down people who are seeking the truth, right? In this case, it's Erika Kirk and Turning Point trying to say, you guys are disrespecting the dead. You're disrespecting the grieving widow who came out 3 days after the fucking shooting and did that very performative, again, and how much of this is, they feed the truthers now. That's the other thing. They always feed the truthers. The truthers are considered now in these narratives, and they feed you, information so that you go down the rabbit hole. Because what happens? Nothing happens, right? There's never been anything that the truth community has done that's changed anything, right? Because even though this information now, people don't believe the official story, so what? They just pretend like that doesn't, you're just crazy conspiracy theorists, and they have this whole little sidebar thing for you. They have the official story for all the sheeple, and then they have this sidebar thing for you.
Okay, you could also use another example. Somebody that was on the right, Kyle Khrushchev. What essentially means is that when a tragedy takes place and we are emotional, our emotions are raw. Me especially, I think this was the first time where I couldn't really check my emotions. I'm just now like moving out of the grief stage. There will be people that then will try to manipulate you, right? They will try to manipulate you by using that strategy of saying, well, it would be really wrong. It would be really wrong for you to look beneath this layer or to ask a question about this. And it would be an injustice to Charlie Kirk's legacy, really. If you really loved him, then you shouldn't do this, okay? Because the tragedy just happened. And they did this, David Hogg. You're not allowed to question David Hogg. Like you said.
All right, so you get the idea here. So that was the first part. So the next piece, she gets into how Charlie Kirk was about to become a Catholic. Like she thinks that Charlie Kirk was about to become a Catholic. Okay, so ate breakfast. When I ate breakfast, that was up early today. It was dark when I woke up. And I turned on Morning Joe like it was my fourth choice. But there was commercials on the other show. And they were talking about Israel and Trump. They're kind of praising Trump a little bit. I kind of was only half watching. And then I went to take my pills. The TV was still on. I came back in and they were talking about how Jewish Americans had turned on Netanyahu, which I'll cover tomorrow. So, but I'm saying that because Candice Owens talking about that Charlie Kirk was going to convert to Catholicism. Now, it's not important to me. Maybe not important to you. But this religious battle, and this is religion within religion, this is, Christians and Catholics battling, all these things, right? Evangelicals, they have all these different sects of religion differences. And we know like the Sunni and the Shiite, and then there's all these different types of Muslims, and there's different types of Jews, and then different types of Hindus, and different types of Buddhists, and then all the other religions that aren't as popular. There's infighting within the religion itself. Bloody infighting, right? There's the religious wars, and then there's the infighting because, like there's so many different versions of the Bible, and all these things, and so this is when things are breaking down, when the Catholics and the evangelicals are fighting over Charlie Kirk, right? Now, Charlie Kirk also did, like, she gets into how he did Catholic. I'll show you some of that stuff in a moment here. But this part I thought was interesting.
Was wearing the Saint Michael pendant when he died, okay? As has already been publicized, Erika took a Catholic bishop with her to pray over his body on the day that he died. These are all indisputable facts. And it is also a fact, which was presented by Megyn Kelly, that a few weeks before his death, Erika had a priest come over to pray over them when some witches thought it would be funny, whatever, to put a hex on him.
So that's fucking weird. So Megyn Kelly got all upset because the liberal feminist, online site, I don't know what exactly, I've never seen it. I kind of know what it is. I think I have seen it, but it's called Jezebel, and they're feminist liberal women. And one of their reporters paid Etsy witches, no, I shit you not, like I covered this before, women who were on Etsy, who claim to be witches, and they do curses, they hex people, right? Etsy witches, right? Which, and so, which is silly. And the woman said she didn't want Charlie Kirk to die. She just wanted his microphone not to work, and like goofy shit, right? You give him to get rashes, or, like in the article itself, like it's like a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke thing. But Megyn Kelly was outraged now because she was trying to use the victim consciousness of Charlie Kirk, all these things, the outrage, right? But apparently, I didn't watch the whole thing. Megyn Kelly must have revealed that Erika took it seriously enough that she hired a priest to ward off the hex, right? And, the whole thing, these people the religions have broken down so much. And I'll get more into that, but all these people, Charlie Kirk wanted a big tent. He wanted Catholics, he wanted evangelicals, he wanted Jews, he wanted all these people. He was trying to get as many different demographics as possible. So that's why he would go do those different practices. Well, it talks about here.
Sheer hatred of Catholics for no reason at all. Here's what they said. I'll jog your memory. I want you to listen to this now in the context of all of the additional details that I just shared with you, okay? Take a listen.
Was he becoming Catholic?
No. But he really loved Catholic Mass. He loved the ritual of it. He loved the beauty of old Catholic churches and the stained glass.
And him and Erika would go sometimes.
Yeah, well, Erika's a cradle Catholic, but she ended up kind of like me. I grew up Catholic and First Communion and went to Catholic high school, but then I ended up becoming a Christian in college through a Protestant church, through a non-denominational kind of more experience. It was actually a Presbyterian, and then it was kind of non-denominational. And I think Erika kind of follows that.
See, the problem with all that is, you don't even know which group is the right one, right? Do you understand? Like, for all these Christians that bounce around to different things. And some of the bouncing around has to do with cliques, right? Some of it has to do with this organization. Like, they got to decipher which group of people are going to be the ones who are most interested in what they want, what they're saying here. Like, I don't think they had a big Catholic following. And so Charlie Kirk converting to Catholicism would have been a stupid move. And they care about that. Like, you don't think they care about cliques? Again, a $22 million payroll. I mean, if it was an $18 or $15 million payroll. Like, think about that. Like, as producers of content, you have, like I have minimal expenses here, right? I'm a one-man show. Like, this is it. And so I don't need nearly as many views to keep this thing going as other people. And so when you start hiring people and you have a staff, then you have to really focus on the business side, right? You have to be, and we're going to get into, Charlie Kirk had a Jewish donor that gave him $2 million. Like that, that amount of money, right? So you have to be bankrolled. And so, donations and merch is great, but not, $18 million a year, great, not $100 million a year. They're not $100 million a year. Like, that's just not, they need outside help. And so this was, again, I don't care about the debate, but the debate is interesting because Candice Owens is claiming that he was going to be Catholic, and this is something they're pushing back against. Now, this guy, Andrew, is comfortable in front of the camera, and he was Charlie Kirk's sort of handler. He was like maybe the main guy in the show. But he can say words. He can answer questions. He's smart. A few of them seem gay, and a lot of them seem like they have low testosterone. They're like the whole thing. It's a weird bunch of guys over there. They don't seem like these, right wing, Republicans, but mostly their thing is political, but they have a religious component, right? Religion is part of their political and their show here. But let's watch the end of this thing.
Same path. She and I share that.
Also, by the way, I just want to draw attention to, she's posted a photo of her and Charlie and the kids in mass before, and somebody in the comment section said, "Oh, are you guys converting?" And she said, "No, we just like attending sometimes." So she herself had said no.
Yeah,
publicly.
and I think Charlie, one of the things, Charlie really hated worshiping in like a gym, or some sort of kind of blank space that you just turn into church. There's no problem. He didn't have a problem with the act of that. He just didn't prefer it. And he loved, again, the ritual, the ancient, feel of a Catholic mass, and the fact that everybody around the world that was worshiping is
he wanted Catholic viewers, right? I mean, they were going to these various things because why would you do that, right? Well, you remember that Erika Kirk said in her reality TV show she was in, that hookup show about the Hamptons, which was a horrible show, and she dated a gay dude on that thing who looked a little bit like Charlie. I showed you this clip. I don't know. It's one of my older videos, but in that she she said she was going to two churches, right? Why two churches? Like, why all these different things? Why are you smorgasbording it? Like, if it's like, can't you find the right one? So this is where religions break down because it's, they start to all go in different directions. It's subtle differences at first and then quite substantial differences later on. And there's just infighting because, it isn't like there's a core understanding that people are connected to the divinity within them. When you're a spiritual person, this is why I talk about the difference between religion and spirituality. In religions, God is outside of you. God is, and the religion controls your access to God. Where spirituality, you connect to divinity within you. And if you had a society full of saints, all people, or just people who were able to connect to the divinity within them substantially enough, where God would let them know what to do, let each person to know what to do. And there would be a kind of consensus because the divinity within every person would be the same. It wouldn't be per that person, like we all have different souls. But the divine plan is still the divine plan. And everybody would kind of get it. And so there would be a consensus because of your interconnection with divinity on what to do. In fact, everyone would just know what the right thing to do is. So there wouldn't be all this infighting. There wouldn't be all this bullshit. But since people don't connect to the divinity within them, they're all over the fucking place. And they don't really believe in God, right? Because they're not connected to God. They believe in an external manifestation of a fictional God that they've been presented by their religion. And their religion tells them what God wants them to do. And they usually don't want to do that. And so they pretend to go along with it, but they choose to do other things. And this is the idea of sinning, right?
Catholic, he loved that. So he had some really big theological hangups with that. You can go check the videos out, him debating with Michael Knowles, in good fun.
Yeah, that's good. It's just good fun. But here's the thing. So there's a reverend who goes after Candice. And this was supposed to be Charlie Kirk's pastor.
This year, when out of nowhere, he's the one that actually messaged me and said, and said Catholicism is sounding better and better in February of 2024. This is kind of when we started having that discussion. We should.
Okay, so that's not it. It's coming up here. Here's this guy. So the guy who's claiming to be Charlie Kirk's pastor then goes after Candice Owens here.
Pause it, rather, would be more fair of an interpretation until the memorial, right? I'm going to jog your memory here. Here is what Pastor Rob McCoy wrote on his Instagram after I exposed the now infamous Hamptons meeting, which took place. He wrote this: Charlie Kirk was my friend and I was his pastor. I want to simply say this regarding Candice Owens. Charlie Kirk was a friend to Candice and never publicly spoke poorly of her, although he disagreed with her. He never operated nor entertained gossip or innuendo concerning Candice. My only comment I offer regarding Candice is this: I only wish that at this tragic time of mourning, she would be the friend to Charlie that he was to her. He would never have treated Candice or her family in such a way had, God forbid, this tragedy been hers. All friend loves at all times. Proverbs. Now, I want to be very clear. If Charlie was a friend of mine, I sure hope if I was assassinated in front of the world that he would raise hell to figure out what actually took place on that day. That's not being a friend. A friend
Raising hell, Candice? You want him to raise hell?
is not someone who stays silent when lies are being told by the federal government. That's not a friend. Again, emotionally manipulative. The family can't have you finding out who actually killed him.
Okay, so this stuff all happened. So the main piece here, this is like the big kind of where she reads these things about a meeting that Charlie Kirk had, and this guy was on it, right? So this gets to the core of his shilling for Israel. Let's find that here. So this part here that leads up to it.
Decided one day to become Catholic, it would have financial implications. I want to be clear, I never had a conversation that Charlie was in the process of converting, okay? But Rob in particular...
She's Catholic, by the way. That's...
knew for an absolute fact that Charlie was done with Israel bullying him.
So this is the priest, or this guy that wrote that thing about her. So this is...
That's what bothers me so much
his pastor.
This man.
His, like, the guy who claims to be his pastor.
Him allowing these headlines: Charlie's pastor speaks out, crushes Candice because of what she said, not whatever. I don't like it. He knew, and others knew, that Charlie was done with Israel bullying him, and I am now going to present you proof of what I am saying. This is an actual group chat, which happened 2 days before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. There were 9 people in total on this chat, including Charlie and Rob McCoy. I'm going to protect the names of the other 7 for now. To be clear, I might actually release a name every day this week, but I want to show you this because suffice it to say, Rob McCoy was on this text thread, and I think it helps contextualize him as a person, in my view, that he would attack me for telling the truth about the pressure that he was facing. Take a look. So Charlie writes in this group chat, just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker.
Okay, so think about that, because he's about to talk about Candice here. So this sucks for them, right? So whatever you think about Candice Owens, whatever stuff's going on here, we know that she is, at least in her show, her act here, whatever she's doing, she's going deeper into, she's calling bullshit on the official story and searching for the truth. And she might know the truth that Charlie Kirk was an actor and he's not really dead. I mean, who knows what she knows? Like, this is what I was saying in the beginning of the video. You don't know anything because it's all fucking, anything could be possible with modern day fake technology and the level of psychological operation. I mean, our whole system is is illusionary. Third dimensional reality is Maya, in the Sanskrit word Maya, illusion, right? The original discovery of the soul, that our soul was our real existence and our life here is illusionary. We live in a simulation, like a very real feeling simulation, right? But in that simulation, Charlie Kirk says he was getting $2 million a year from a Jewish donor. So think about that. Like, someone's giving his organization $2 million a year. And because he wouldn't break with Tucker Carlson, so that $2 million came with a price tag, right? When I tell people who donate to me here, and I don't talk about donations very much. Of course, I have a membership program. But the only reason I would want people to be a member or to donate is because you're getting something out of this. I'm not looking for handouts, right? People who are benefiting and see the benefit in my show and want to see this to keep on going. That this is benefiting them and humanity in some way, and that there's something here worth paying for, right? If you want to pay for content, when you subscribe to Netflix, there's people, when people say, I'm subscribing, right? Like they're using that as a weapon. I always mock that because it's a way of censoring you. But $2 million a year is, that buys you a lot of censorship, right? It buys you a lot of goodwill. And so Charlie Kirk was getting millions upon millions of dollars from Israel, and not Israel directly, but people who were, supporters of Israel and the genocide and these things. And Charlie Kirk was a good shill for them. And, despite whatever his religious beliefs were, his political beliefs, he really was shilling for them well. But when he started to question some of the, like he was saying what, Morning Joe now says 60% of Americans, which I'll cover tomorrow, American Jewish people, thought that war crimes were being committed by Netanyahu in Palestine. So, like Charlie Kirk was just telling them, all these people who wanted a blank check for Israel didn't realize what was happening, right? So he was getting that much money and that they had that much influence over. So he was a piece of shit, right? Because he was being bought, right? You're being bought because you have this huge organization, somewhere around a $22 million payroll. You're making $100 million a year, and she's going to talk about this audit thing coming up and where people were laundering money. So, these are all reasons to kill the guy, right? You understand this? If someone's going to give you $2 million and for you being a supporter of Israel, and then you turn on Israel, well, that $2 million could buy a hit, right? People kill each other over $5, homeless guys. We're talking millions here. But going back here a second now.
$2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candice. Somebody writes, ugh.
Ugh.
Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. Then somebody writes, a donor writes, please do not invite Candice. That might feel good short term, but it's not good long term. In my opinion, like all groups, you're going to get a wide variety of opinions. That nasty free will thing that God bestowed on us makes life frustrating at times after the dust settles a bit, maybe. So again, this is 48 hours before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was very clear and he was very explicit, and he did not back down, not in that Hamptons meeting, which they're all lying about, nor in this text thread.
Okay, so this is Candice Owens' big claim to fame here. And they can dispute what she's saying, but, this is, she has text. They were all part of this discussion. So if Charlie Kirk, 8 days before he was killed, wanted to do an audit because he didn't know where the $100 million a year was going, right? So there's a payroll, and then there should have been around $80 million left over, whatever money he was taking for his big mansion and things like this. But he was wanting an audit, and they dispute her saying that, even though she read the memo he put out, like, if this is real, and they're kind of disputing it, which comes up here. But she's going to get into possibly money laundering. Let's go to that part here. Okay, so the kickbacks things is coming. It's a 20-minute jump from here, so let's see. There might be some other things here.
The attacks that not just me, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly faced for trying to stand up and tell the truth about what Charlie was actually going through. Why are you hearing it, though, from me and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly? Isn't that weird? You got people that are hosting a show. Have they, in like one honorable thing, come out and said, like, you know what? F a couple of these donors who made his life a living hell in the last couple of weeks. Why haven't they done that? There's also a rabbi in that chat. Like, why hasn't anybody made that move to at least say, to vindicate what I have been saying about what he was going through? That registers to me as very suspicious. I'm going to frankly say that it's suspicious to me.
Okay, so Turning Point sucks, because they are screwed. They have no star. They have a huge payroll. Erika Kirk said nobody's getting fired. Like, that was her big thing on her when she came in. So Erika Kirk's made 3 appearances. Not counting the weird casket photos and the tarmac getting comforted by Usha Vance and, J.D. Vance. But in terms of these things where she has spoken publicly, right? So she, 3 days after Charlie was dead, she put a podium in his office or his studio and gave a speech. And then she had the, weird thing with Trump and the mega church thing where they had his, what's now being considered his fucking funeral, which is weird as shit. Where she fake cried and she forgave the shooter, that young man. They're all convicted, this fucking guy. You can't convict him. You can't say this guy killed him. He hasn't trialed yet. Like, that's liable. You can't say that shit. But, these guys are already convicted because that's how this thing always goes. They convict the person ahead of time, right? But she said all those kind of things, right? This stuff that she did. And then she came on Turning Point and said she was really excited. They had all this videotape of Charlie, not videotape, but, dating myself. That's an old thing we used to say. But now, of course, it's digital. But all the video they have, the clips that have unseen things, and they were going to continue on and play them, but they're not even doing that. Like, I don't think, in any of the show, and I haven't watched the whole show because it's that bad, they haven't done any of that, right? But she appeared in these various places, but she said to these guys, she said she met with the employees and said, if you want to leave, you can, but no one's going anywhere. No one's like, I'm not firing anybody. So if 458 employees at 50,000 years is $23 million, $22.9 million, right? So, and if it's less or more money than that, if it's $20 million, it's $18 million, it's $30 million, you need to at least make that. And Erika Kirk is expecting to make a profit. And so where do they get that, right? Like, is Israel still going to, these Jewish donors still going to pay them without Charlie Kirk? And that thing's shutting down because, this war thing is at least shut down for now. And I don't know what will happen that in terms of a story. But, Israel is just, its reputation, its brand is damaged in America, and we'll see how that all plays out. There seems to be almost like a divorce happening, at least certainly the initial stages of it. And people are openly talking about this relationship, this parasitic relationship where American taxpayers are funding this little country that is kind of dickish about all these things, right? And so, there's all that kind of stuff. Let me see if I can find this. There's a guy talks about the 6-day war here. But anyways, so, this is completely fucked.
Body made that move to at least say, to vindicate what I have been saying about what he was going through. That registers to me as very suspicious. I'm going to frankly say that it's suspicious to me. It makes me think that in the same way that Charlie was being pressured by money, that you might be now run by that same money, that those same donors might be running you to correct the ship and to focus yourselves.
But that's that they're throwing away fucking money, right? Because Charlie Kirk's influence, his organization's influence, I don't know what that's worth now, right? Now that this, everyone's turned on Israel, that whatever deal they have, this bogus deal that they have after Palestine or Gaza Strip has been destroyed. This whole thing. But, who's got that kind of pull with these people? It's certainly not this Andrew guy and the people that are running the show now. And we don't know what kind of shit they're going to produce in terms of these college campuses. But you're going to see they're not going to have the turnout they used to have. And when that happens, like, who's going to give you $2 million when you only have influence over about 10% of the people you used to? Your influence has gone down 90%, right? because your show fucking blows now and you don't have anything.
On eulogizing Charlie as something and someone that never once flinched, never once for a single second doubted the Israeli cause. Now they want us to suddenly believe the best way to honor Charlie is to shut up, the exact opposite of what he quite literally laid down his life doing, answering questions, turning.
Okay, so there's that. Or did he? Like the character Charlie Kirk is gone.
Killed him and why the feds are lying. We should instead just trust the feds and excuse their little half-truths that they're telling along the way. Now, on that point, they keep trying to make it seem like it's completely normal that 4 minutes after Charlie was shot, someone on their team nervously raced to grab the SD cards, specifically from the camera that is behind Charlie's head. And that was because during that time, I think it's like trying to make it normal that his instinct was to stand on Charlie's chair to actually violate a crime scene, but also to mysteriously just grab the SD card out of the camera, right? Not only are they pretending that that was completely normal, but they're also presenting it as though it was a heroic act. It was like a forthright, clarified act to do in that moment, and that anyone who uses their own eyes and sees it as maybe a little bit suspicious are just in the business of spinning conspiracies. Now, that's exactly what was communicated by Andrew Colvett when he sat across from Tucker Carlson, who was hosting Charlie's show. And gratefully, Tucker Carlson...
So remember, Candice Owens knew the guy who grabbed the video and texted him, and they got an exchange, and he showed her the video and said there was no blood. From behind, there was no blood at all. And so other people have felt like this was a projector, that this was some kind of hologram projecting device. There's just, that's what I'm saying earlier in the voiceover. Like, getting to the truth is just not something that's going to happen. You're going to have to take your best guess, based on how, this is pretty much everything now. Like, you have to, assess, when you're making a decision, a big decision would be like, am I going to get the vax or not, right? Am I going to, take some kind of, medication, Paxlovid, or, it's who you end up trusting. Do you trust Trump? There's people who wouldn't have taken the vax when it was Operation Warp Speed, and it was Trump's vax, which it was because Trump bragged about it. He said he was the father of the vaccine, and that he pushed it through. But then when Biden was president, it was the same vaccination, but people took it. But remember, Kamala Harris said if it was coming from Trump, she wouldn't take it. But when it was Biden, she did take it, right? So what the fuck, right? It's the same thing. Like, it was made by these drug companies. Was it made by Biden or Trump? And Trump pushed it through, and then Biden pushed it on everybody. But, that's a decision. That's going to affect you, your health, whatever. You got to make these decisions. There's things that actually you have to decide on. Lots of this stuff has nothing to do with us. Are you going to vote or not? These things. And that really doesn't matter at all. People think it matters, and of course it doesn't, because the elections are all rigged. Everything's all rigged, right? It's just all these, it's just layers and layers of bullshit, right? And so within that, you have to figure out, your course in life, which way you're going. And, who you're going to trust or not isn't people are you shouldn't trust Candice Owens, you shouldn't trust, Tucker Carlson. You shouldn't trust anybody, because I said in this other voiceover, the people, you can't trust the deceived. Even if somebody's telling their truth, are they deceived, right? What are they deceived about, right? So, each person's got to come up with their own abilities, because we live in just a complete fucking lie fest, right? And so speaking of
Carlson instantly responded with a much more sensible approach. Take a listen.
By the way, just one other conspiracy theory I just want to snuff out here. One of
again, why are you in the business of snuffing out conspiracy theories? This is the whole thing Candice is saying. Isn't it suspicious that their big job here? Let's forgive the guy who shot him, but snuff out conspiracy theories. Again, truthers are the villains, right? Not the guys that conspired to murder Charlie Kirk, not the people that he was having beef with right before he died. Right?
Our dear friends that literally from the very beginning started with us and loved Charlie like a brother. He grabbed the SD cards out of the camera afterwards. And there's all these conspiracy videos about, like, why did he grab the SD cards? Well,
This guy's very kind of. I'm not saying I know he's gay for a fact, but
first of all, they're in the possession of the FBI. Okay. It's not like he took them and like ran off with
again,
them.
also the FBI is good. You know, how many of the Turning Point people believe the FBI was covering up for Jeffrey Epstein? Well, how much shit did Trump talk about the FBI? Like, how many of these people believe in the federal government? These are right-wing conservative Christians who are radicalized in some way, and then all of a sudden now the FBI's go. The FBI will do good work here. Yeah, but the FBI, why? Because Trump is the,
Second of all, I asked him personally. I said, why did you do that? And he looked at me, and this was his answer. He said, because I know people can be evil. And he did not want that footage
Again, that's manipulative. Like, I've covered this before. I showed you this.
being grabbed by somebody. There was videos of people after the incident going and stealing hats off the table. I mean, so I'm so grateful he did that, and that was his instinct. He's like,
Why would people be doing that? Like, it's a fucking crime scene. Like, what was happening? That there was hat stealing going on there.
I'm depressed to know that was why I did that, but I knew that I had to protect that footage because I wanted, I mean, you're recording in like 4K, And so I'm so glad he did that. But Charlie knew the existence of evil. And
Well,
so,
can I say,
yeah.
I think that people can feel the existence of evil, and that, just to put in a sympathetic word for people who are trying to make sense of this and coming to the wrong conclusions, I think they're motivated,
Sure.
for the most part, by pure intent. I think they don't trust the authorities. They have every reason to feel that way. I know that for a fact. Not the Trump administration, just in general. Like,
Again, so like Tucker Carlson's saying this. Tucker Carlson's getting views, and they're not. Like, they have snuffed out all their views by going, let's believe in the federal government. Let's believe in the official story. Let's squash out any, like, I want to dispel conspiracy theories. And, you did weird shit. Like, it doesn't matter, what your fucking story is. Like, people are just like, all right, you're no longer credible as an organization. Like, if your story is that people can be evil, yeah, that's not how the fucking internet works, right, bro? And so, let's move ahead here a little bit. There's something here.
The campus went on to lockdown. Now, here's the tweet, so I can show you that. Somebody said, rightfully, emotional manipulation and falsely equating scrutiny as some form of hate speech is not going to work here. You and Colvett admitted that the staff tampered with cameras and the most crucial video evidence in the largest political assassination in decades. Hiding makes them look guilty.
Again, political assassination. That's the important piece, because he's not spiritual. I want to get to the kickback thing here. Let me go to the Charlie Kirk thing, because I want to define him as a person. Because that's really important here. Because he's not who they say he is, right?
Tyler countered, dude did not tamper with anything. Yes, he did. It's a crime scene. The law enforcement officers asked them to turn them over immediately so they didn't get lost in commotion before they took everyone into lockdown. Now, that is just not true. That is not true. What Tyler is saying is not true. I spoke to that Turning Point individual, as I told you, and he never once mentioned that police officers. I explicitly asked him.
Okay, so she's catching these guys lying, and if she's seen the video like she claims, then he didn't turn them over to the FBI, or at least they have copies of it. And so, this is where when you become the voice of the beast, right? When you go from being a so-called religious, political organization that's there to con people, and you're representing a foreign government in Israel, and all the fucking bullshit. Turning Point's a piece of shit thing, right? Let's go to the Charlie Kirk thing here. So they reposted this, right? The Charlie Kirk show reposted this because they're getting no fucking views. So they posted this as Charlie Kirk's most viewed video ever. So this is his most viewed video, this exchange with this young woman. And he comes off like a total piece of shit here. And just weak and petty and just like, not an adult. Which I'll show you in a second. But they're having to post this stuff. It was posted 13 hours ago. So this came out because I've been looking at their channel quite a bit, so YouTube recommended it, right? And this is defines who Charlie Kirk was.
Do you feel proud of yourself for debating college kids who are unprepared to speak in front of an audience like yourself? Hold on.
So he's got all these fucking morons wearing MAGA hats, right? And so, there's a lot of young men out there who are disillusioned by the fact that, especially white young men, but young men in general, the whole feminist Me Too, whole, cisgender whole thing, white guys suck, men suck, thing that's going on there, right? All these incels, it's a whole, the manosphere thing that's happened. And Charlie Kirk tapped into that, right? But what she's saying here is true, because I've said it myself. When you're a grown-ass person, and Charlie Kirk is whatever he's gotten for training, he's good public speaker. I mean, I don't like what he says, and, I didn't find what he did entertaining, but these people are all professionally trained. When you do this for a job, and you do it, like if you're going across these colleges, and you have an audience that's there to see you. You have this power of the audience, power of approval. And you're some guy sitting there holding court. You're the knower, right? Charlie Kirk is the knower, which let's go to that part here, right?
Hold on. You're 30 years old. We can agree you're 30 years old, right? Do you think that's a little bit silly?
Are you a voter?
I am a voter.
So then he gets defensive, right? Like this is how he debates.
Oh, so I vote and you vote. So I'm talking to voters of this country that will determine the
Remember this piece of shit here?
future of Western civilization.
Yeah, and he sucked. Woo!
That's what I'm doing here today.
So listen to these guys, right? Like, he's got a canned audience there, right? Like she's going against all these people. Like she's kind of, I don't know what the hell she's drinking, whatever it is. But she's, these young college dopes who don't know anything. And as you get older, like when you're 30, you realize, if you look back when you're 30, you realize how much of a dope you were when you were in college. Like, now you're married and things that you didn't know when you were in college. And you have to evolve and mature as a person. And then as a professional, he has this whole audience, right?
Yeah? Wait, hold on. How is it any different than a professor talking to you?
Again, he's comparing himself to a professor. And he isn't, because the professors, hopefully, aren't being paid $2 million by an Israeli donor. They aren't making $100 million a year to do this bullshit. Like, he's such a punk. Like, he's like, I mean, now, if you are a spiritual person, and you're not going to get this anywhere else, because people don't know this. Like, people don't understand this. I made a video somewhere in here, which I think is really worth watching, where I don't know what the title is. I'll check to see if the title later when I'm done with this. But what's something like what people don't know about good versus evil. Because there is no good versus evil when you're talking about spirituality. Because if you're a saint, if you're a higher developed soul, then your job is to help everybody in the world, certainly anybody who comes to you, connect to the divinity within you. So they're not enemies, right? They're not your enemies, the people that are coming here, whether they have issues. I saw this play out when there was a real spiritual master in the meditation that I do, that the master system was confronted, people had issues, and his job was to lovingly, in some way, and it didn't have to be, he could be harsh or whatever it is, was to bring them aboard, right? To help them connect to the divinity within them. And that you were looking at each person in the world as somebody that you were going to help if they wanted to, if they agreed to it. And also you had to make yourself, in a way that would be appealing to those people. Like not, fake who you are, But you can't be an asshole to groups of people. You have to be there and say, you know, I'm here for anybody who needs me. Like the masters of Sajmark system used to say, you can quit anytime you want, but I can't quit you. Like I can't turn on you. I have to always be there. Even people would write them nasty letters and get mad at them and things, and they had to, you know, find a way to, you know, they'd look at it as, well, what do I have to do to help this person more, right? Because when you're working for God, your job is to help people connect to God. And wouldn't it be great if you could get the worst of the worst in the world? So there's no politics when you're a person of who's doing God's work. Charlie wasn't doing God's work. Like he's a fucking grifter who quoted from scripture and shit like that, right? You can see it right here. I'm glad they reposted this video. You know, like I am aware of what I'm saying. And so, but I'm not going to lie about my whatever I'm doing here, right? I have the Gratefulness meditation I'm carrying on, you know, from the Sajmark system, you know, but I have very, very little faith in people. Like I'm doing the work that I have to do, but I'm not going to go out of my way because I saw the way people turned on this guy, Master Chargy, after he died. I've seen the way people turned on Jesus, right? You know, I mean, humanity, you can't, to me, again, I'm not saying these guys did anything wrong, these higher developed souls that come down. But the difference between me and them is, you know, I'm kind of, especially now at this point in my life, right? Like, for example, when people ask me about my mocking of people, and they're like, that's not very spiritual. And I'm like, yeah, it's not, you know? Did I ever say mocking was spiritual? Like, you know, me being an asshole, that's me coping with this job that I do here and people being sucky. And it's just, you know, I enjoy mocking people. Like, you know, it's not a higher developed quality, right? I'm not going to pretend to be a saint, you know, when I'm not. Like, I'm not going to pretend to be a master when I'm not. But I do God's work to whatever, you know, whatever my commitment is to that level. But my commitment could be more. But, you know, I'm not a big fan of people, right? Like, you know, and not that you have to be a big fan of people. You just have to be willing to do God's work. But when you're willing to do God's work, there's no enemies and there's no politics. There's no right versus left. There's only people's internal, you know, divinity within them and helping them connect with that. That's all you focus on. You don't give a shit about anything, right? What they do for work, what they believe in terms of these things, who they voted for. You know, what their views are, what their beliefs are. None of that shit's important, right? It's important that you find a way to help them connect to the divinity within them, right? That's the only thing. And anybody who falls short of that is not really worthy of being called a spiritual leader or somebody like, you know, a saint, because they're not, right? Charlie was petty and he's political. Look at his face here. Again, this is a grown-ass man. He thinks he made a great point that, you know, you listen to older professors tell you what's up. Well, why wouldn't you listen to me? Well, you're not. You know, you're a guy who's being paid as a shill for Israel and then Trump, like two pieces of shit organizations. You know, whatever Israel is, a country, shitty country that's parasitic and that's working against the better interest of the American people, American government, or whatever it is. And Trump, who turned out to be a complete piece of shit, right? Like at this point, everyone should know that Trump fucked you, right? He played you. He isn't the guy that he pretended to be. And there is no real fucking MAGA, right?
Then a professor talking to you? Who are you?
Well, important enough for you to come up to a microphone.
Right? Like, he's not even good at it. I thought he was like good at these things. Like, you know, like this is like what people liked about him is he mocked liberal college students. Like, this is him owning them. So, like, you know, he was a punk, right? He was not, you know, this is not fucking, like, manly behavior. He's being, like, you know, he's being bankrolled by Israel. We now know that he had a $2 million a year donor that was supporting, you know, was only supporting him because he was supporting Israel. So that's fucked, right? You already know he's compromised. And this is like, you know.
Actually, when I first saw this ad, I thought it was like an improv comedy thing. It looked so ridiculous that I didn't even think it was real.
Well, no, you could see. Look how popular Trump is on your campus. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, fucking dumbasses.
That's not comedy. That is a 5-alarm fire for Kamala Harris because she's probably going to lose Pennsylvania.
Look,
Boom. Yeah. Oh, yeah. She is. She sucks. Right. But Trump Trump is way worse than Kamala Harris would be. Kamala Harris could never get away with what Trump's doing. That's why Trump was their asset, right? Trump can do what no other politician can do. I mean, he's just fucking. I mean, he's invoking martial law. They've been waiting to do this. I mean, I've been covering that as a goal since like 2015 when I found out about it. Like, I didn't know. Like, them invoking martial law has been around forever. Like, certainly recent years. I mean, they did during the hippie movement. They've done, again, one of their primary goals of people who control the system is control, it's people controlling the system is control. And it's to prevent the mob from, going apeshit, right? And so, my God, like, he's horrible. Like, I thought he was better at this.
But no, I just want to be clear. Is there something wrong with talking to voters?
no, there's nothing wrong with talking.
Well, that's
to
what we're
voters.
doing here today. It's an open
I
mic,
think that you push a dangerous agenda.
such as.
Your stance on abortion rights, for example.
Here we go.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, so
Let me ask a question. What is your name?
Gene.
Gene. And what is your understanding of the current Republican Party's stance on federal intervention in abortion?
Well, I know that they want to bring it back to the states, right?
So it sounds like you do know that the Republican Party's current stance on abortion is they're against a federal ban on abortion.
I do
And we're
understand
talking about
that,
a
yes.
presidential election as the
Yes.
important election that we're talking about here.
I understand that, yes.
Great. So, again, I think this open dialogue is great. I think it's great you're here challenging Charlie, and I think it's great that he's willing to travel campuses across this country to talk to the next
This is fucking great. It's great that he's being bankrolled by Israel. It's great that he's pushing a fucking demonic candidate in Trump to a bunch of dopey fucking college kids who can't think their way out of a paper bag, right? Like this is supposed to be his crowning moment. This piece of shit, remember when they got rid of him from Doge? Remember, this guy was just disappeared. He was a candidate, and then he was pro-Trump candidate, and Trump liked him, and he endorsed Trump right off the bat, and then he was supposed to work with Elon Musk and Doge, and then they cut him out, and like now, what happened to him, right?
We need more conversation. Now, where's the disagreement, though, on content? Because you could criticize style or why you're talking to people
Listen,
or dunk on someone personally, but where do you actually disagree with
I
the
agree
substance?
with the way that you edit content and specifically frame it so that people look bad talking to you. The way that you edit your content.
we post unedited content.
Let me just ask you one thing, though, because personal insults can fly.
See, what she's saying is real here. Because what he's trying to do is he's hoping liberals show up. He's got a canned audience. He's got the power. Like, he's sitting in the tent like the king and the knower, like the professor, and he's the guy who knows, and he's living adult life, and he's got a big organization. He's going campus to campus. This is like a traveling fucking snake oil salesman, right? That's what this guy is. He's selling snake oil, pretending to be religious, pretending to be whatever he is. He's shilling for Israel. They're making fucking $100 million a year as they're being bankrolled. They influenced the election. And one of the things was to make liberals look bad. Now, you can see this girl, she said she didn't know who he was. Then she's now saying she did, know his positions. And, like, she doesn't have anything, right? She doesn't have the wherewithal or the ability to understand. Like, her original point was valid. You're a 30-year-old guy debating college kids. So, and then she shows why that's fucking, she's at a disadvantage. Everyone's mocking her in the crowd. They're, oh, you booing, whatever. They're fucking morons with MAGA hats on, right? But this is the kind of guy he was, a piece of shit, right? And so, this isn't like some saintly person that's helping to bring religion to people. This isn't about any of those things. This is a guy who's tapping into the anger, especially anger of young men, the manosphere, angry of people who are, these right-wing kids or whatever it is, and presenting Trump as an option to the establishment. Also, the sponging off the truth community that was built on the idea of the left-right paradigm And that's been, hijacked by these right-wing dumb fucks, right? The people I call the dumb fucks, from dumb fuckistan, right? This is a dumb fuckistan guy right here. All these people, dumb fuckistan.
In all directions. Where is an area where you have a disagreement with the conservative movement, with Donald Trump, with Charlie Kirk, perhaps with myself? I was a presidential candidate last year. I think we need to talk about that more in the open. And the more we do, the stronger our country is going to be. We got a long line of people, but I want to hear from you one substantive area where you have an authentic disagreement, and I'd be glad to address it. I'm sure Charlie would too.
Just in any
Anything.
political...
Relating to any political topic where you...
Because she doesn't know shit, right? Because you're a college kid, you don't know shit, right? So a few of them are like, you have to be a weirdo to be, like, who gives a shit? Who watches the news, right? So she's watched some videos on YouTube. She has some things. I mean, the Israel thing, they should have something on here. But she has nothing. And so this was Charlie Kirk's most viewed video ever, right?
have a disagreement. Let's air it.
Okay. I disagree with some of the laws that are being pushed in Congress that are against the LGBTQ community and the trans community.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Okay, so that's not really a real thing, right? So when this is happening, this is well, I'm not sure when this has happened. Well, because he's out there, so they're campaigning for Trump. So this is before the election. So this is certainly before Trump is sworn in, and so none of those things right now. The major movement is pro LGBT and pro trans, right? So this is when Biden's president. So she doesn't know, like she doesn't have anything because she made her fucking point, right? She's a dopey college kid, and that this guy's debating college kids, and she got that point. But she doesn't have, like, they're saying, well, like, they're putting these kids on the spot and going, all right, what do you guys know about politics? Well, it's nothing. We're dopey fucking college kids. Like, what did you know in college? Like, these little things, and somebody tells you something, like, we got to save the whales. And like, yeah, let's save the whales. And, some guy gets on board because he wants to get laid or whatever, so, it's like fucking dopey college shit, right? You don't know anything. And your capacity to understand this is far less than a 30-year-old guy who's a paid performer, right? Actor or whatever he is. And this fucking clown is debating, these people who do this for a living. Like they know, actual shit about politics, right?
I'm going to give you my view, and then I want to hear yours.
Okay.
My view is that if you're a fully grown adult, 18 or above, you're free to live how you want, dress how you want, marry who you want if you want, if you're over the age of 18.
I agree.
But you are not free to indoctrinate children in schools who are not yet of the age of consent. You are.
Okay, let's get to Charlie Shea, I think. So this is all mostly Vivek Ramaswamy here.
I don't think you're focusing on substance, though. That's the issue.
Hold on. Look, he intentionally tried to provoke substance out of you, and you said, well, I'm worried about some laws Congress should pass. I have to ask, what laws are you talking about? Can you be specific?
See, that's so condescending and, like, obnoxious. Like, he's a punk. Like, this is not, Again, like, I don't mind this kind of behavior, but not when you're pretending that they're pretending he's, like, some saint, right? Like, the internet's full of mocking, and, yeah, people suck. Yeah, I'm, whatever. Like, yeah, this is, whatever. We're all obnoxious. We're all, whatever. This is not a bad behavior in terms of being on the internet. I mean, it's just how people behave. And you have to deal with shitty people all the time. He's dealing with people in these forums. But he wasn't some saint, right? He wasn't some spiritual. He was not radiating out spiritual energy the way they fucking turned him into like he's the second coming of fucking Christ. And, this was some spiritual fucking warfare that some, they're saying some punk kid who was married to some transgender dude, or was dating some transgender dude, decided to assassinate him, which is a fucking silly story. That's just unbelievable. But they're trying to make this like it's some kind of spiritual religious guy. He's not any of those things, right?
I'm sorry, I'm very nervous, but this is what you do. This is what you do. You take people and you put them under the spotlight, and you.
Well, hold on. I didn't ask you to come up here. You voluntarily came to the front of the line. You didn't have to do that.
You're purposely antagonizing people on campus, asking
How?
people to come up by spreading your weird agenda.
How? What agenda is that? I'm
Okay, I'm confused.
confused though.
So Charlie, I'll say this.
You know, like she's being a prick, right? And a prick that he's like she said, she's nervous and she's got her back to all these fucking. She doesn't know shit, right? like she's unprepared, and you know, it's like one of these things where, and I said, not that this is going to ever happen, that anybody who appears on CNN or MSNBC or Fox is a piece of shit, and also you're selling yourself out. Like when Alex Jones did those interviews with Piers Morgan and Megyn Kelly went liberal, and she was on MSNBC after Fox, and she was like pushing that agenda, and they did hit pieces on the truth community using the shill Alex Jones. But if you go on any of these shows, like what she was saying about Charlie Kirk editing, if you're a truther and you go on these shows, what do you think they're doing? Why are you on that show? They want to make you look like an asshole, right? They want to make you look like a crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist. And you're also you're acknowledging that they're an authority. So if you go on CNN or MSNBC, you're acknowledging them as like real journalists. And like somehow, you know, people think, all right, well, there's going to be a lot of viewers. No, nobody watches that shit, right? And when you go on there, they're going to edit it and they're going to put you in a position to look like a fucking piece of shit because they have an agenda, just like Charlie Kirk has an agenda. And so their agenda, if you are opposing what they're doing, is to make you look bad some way and have a viral moment. And that's what Charlie Kirk is looking for. Viral moment, mocking young, stupid liberals on college campuses. But the problem was he was pushing a genocide, and these kids were right about that. And he was getting money to do it. And they all say he wasn't getting money from Israel, but we now know from Candice Owens' various things that she talked about, and Megyn Kelly also talked about this. These donors were putting pressure on him to change his position on doubting, even just supporting or giving a platform to somebody who was perceived as anti-Israel, like someone like Tucker Carlson, who was giving mild criticism, right? And so, like, this guy was nothing. Like, he sucked. He wasn't even good at what he was doing here. And he's still much better than the people they have now. So Turning Point is, like, fucking done. Like, it was, whatever it was, it's over, because unless they get another star, it's fading fast, right?
We'll end on this and we'll go to the next question.
Okay, so there's that. So that's Charlie Kirk. That's who he was. They're promoting him as this is him speaking from the grave, mocking this fucking dopey college kid, right? And getting money from Israel, shilling for Israel. So they're re-releasing. They re-released this. And this is 15 hours ago. It got 148,000 views. This video got 24,000 views, right? And this video's 100,000. That's good for them. 19,000 views, 58,000 views, 35,000 views, right? 68, 26, whatever it is, right? All far less than this one. And this is a new video. It's going to get more views. But still not enough to pay the bills, right? Like, they can release as much of Charlie Kirk's old shit. And, it's no one's going to give a shit. It's like he's dead. It's like that whole thing's done. Like you're trying to give this guy sainthood, and he clearly wasn't a saint. Just to clarify what I was saying, I could go be more of a spiritual person in terms of my commitment to humanity. Like, I could go out and, just whatever it is. Like, I don't really have the capacity to do that, but I could do that. Like, I understand the work, and, it's a level of being committed to other people by being committed to God, but working to serve God, but doing that by meeting people and working to help them connect to the divinity within them. But I've seen this work done, and I've seen people rise to high levels of spirituality and then still turn on God or the master, whatever it is, right? This is, humanity does shit like that. So I'm not saying that, that those people made a mistake, that higher developed souls made a mistake by doing that. But it's not for me, right? I'll do my duty to whatever extent it is by promoting, whatever this, not promoting, but talking about the stuff that I do. And I've made the Gratefulness Meditation channel for people who want to work at it. You have to work at it. Because the problem in the past is people try to do too much for other people. And other people don't learn to do it for themselves. And so human beings are at a choice point, like this actually is a turning point, where we're either going to have to go up or go down or be wiped out altogether. Which, it's just going to be a failed experiment. People have had, human beings, at least this version of human beings, have had a tendency to go lower, to go to the drama, the dark side, the ego, and neglect their spiritual side, their soul, and their spiritual, their soul's path. And that's just a problem, and I see it very clearly, and this is pretty much everything I cover here. And people are either going to, finally embrace their higher nature and rise up to a higher level, or it's over. Like this is it's just a failed experiment, because that's what we are right now. Like we are, it's like, they do these experiments where they addict rats to cocaine. And, if they give the rat the capacity to like hit a button and get coke or some other drug, they'll do it until they kill themselves, right? Like, the self-destructive nature. And that could happen for any species, where you forget about, like the pleasure centers or whatever it is. You forget about your soul's purpose, and you just indulge, and you become a piece of shit, just an indulgent, selfish, egotistical piece of shit. And people do that. And, it's understandable because lots of people do it. But we have something else. We have another option, which is to embrace our higher nature and to rise up to higher levels of consciousness and forgo some of our, lower tendencies and some of our, addictions and our desires and things like that, and, embrace our spiritual path. And when people do that, when we have lots of people do that, you'll see a totally transformed society, and none of this shit will matter. None of this drama, none of this bullshit will matter, right? But until that time, we're going in the wrong fucking direction. It's idiocracy, and most people know it. We're creating dumb fuckistan. And until there's some kind of a switch that's flipped, or apocalyptic type situation where people realize what we've done and, get the compulsion to redeem themselves, we're fucked, right? Until that time, humanity's going the wrong direction. Okay, so I took a little break, went for a walk with my dogs, went outside there. Guinea fowl just must have grew like into adult guinea like last night. I went out, I just saw them yesterday. It's raining. They're the only ones out during the rain, like drizzling. And I'm like, who are these two prehistoric birds in my yard? But anyways, new, the White House, this is from Fox News. New, the White House calls Rosie O'Donnell's decision to apply for Irish citizenship great news for America. And that's what it says right here. Down here as well. Rosie O'Donnell sucks. She's not funny. I didn't enjoy her in any movie, TV show, certainly not on The View. Not a fan of hers in any way. But fucking really? Because she got into a debate with Donald Trump a long time ago. Similar to Charlie Kirk. Because, it's not a fair fight, right? And targeting somebody the way he targeted Rosie O'Donnell was not cool. Of course, she had The View. She was on The View, so she had a little bit more. She had whatever or maybe she wasn't on The View at that time, but whatever it was. But since then, he's gone on to run for president, be elected president, lose in a second term, and then become president again. And he's been the central figure, and he's got his own media platform now, and, people listen to him. And he still has this fucking beef with her. And it's fucking silly because I think she's divorced now, her kid hates her, she has no career, and like whatever, and she's like whatever goofy thing, she's moving out of the country because Trump's president, I don't know. And that's all weird. Like that's just, she has some money, but whatever. But really, this is important. Like fucking you're commenting on her. Like, the country's going to get better because Rosie O'Donnell isn't here. Like, is that, with the onset of the internet, she's still going to post shit on Instagram that nobody's going to look at. She's like fucking nothing, right? Like, this is how petty and goofy they are. Like, this is everything you need to know. There's the whole Charlie Kirk as well thing. I mean, gee, leave her alone, right? You won already. You fucking won, right? You're going to grind her into the fucking stuff. Like, Jesus Christ. Let's get back to this here.
SD cards out specifically of the camera behind, and the answer that I was given, which sounded more like what Andrew Colvett said. I was emotional. I knew that Charlie was dead, and my instinct, he told me, was to make sure that I secured the footage so that Erika would not have to see it again. Like, he didn't.
See what Andrew Kovac said, because people are evil. Like, he's trying to shut down that fucking theories, right? Because people are evil. We're battling evil here. We're the fucking good guys. We're battling evil by taking hundreds of millions of dollars from Israel and promoting a genocide. We're battling evil. This fucking bullshit, right? Like, he's a piece of shit organization. Charlie Kirk was a piece of shit. The whole thing with Trump, it's all fucking fake. And there's no God here. I mean, God's everywhere, but they're not, connected to God in any real way. I mean, they're a political organization, right? Politics, I've said this before, and this is undebatable. Like, you guys can debate it, but it's undebatable. You can't serve two masters. And certainly you can't serve God and a political party or political ideology at the same time. They don't go together. And so you either have to you can't be a social reformer and a godly person. I mean, you can, but like, you have to make a choice, right? Because the works of God, like, God doesn't give a shit about death. Death isn't a problem for God, right? Because it's part of life. Like, life and death are two sides of the same coin. And so death doesn't mean anything to God. Like, you're going to die. It doesn't mean anything to your soul either. Like, your soul isn't going to die. Your soul's going to keep on going. So, this death is a big thing for people materially. It's a big thing for your ego. It's a big thing for you as a person, because it means the end of some part of you. It means the end of you as a person, as an entity, your physical body that you identify with, and all the other things. And so death plays a big part. Safety is a huge word in politics and these other things. And so these are things that concern people politically in terms of the material life, but mean nothing to a spiritual person. And so as a spiritual person, and you don't have to be a pure spiritual person. Like, you do have a material life, you have your own preferences and things like this. But in terms of serving two masters, you can't work for two different opposing entities. And politics is not of God, especially in America and all these things. And so, Israel isn't a country of God. It has its own political agenda. It's an ego-driven country like all these other countries. Governments can align themselves with divine will. But that means that you as a person has to connect to divinity, as do the other citizens, and just know what God wants to do, and then you execute that on a political level, on a spiritual level. And that's not what's happening here with Charlie Kirk and any of these other people. They're not connected to divinity because they practice, a religion that's, it's 99% material. And there are some spiritual people that are there, but everything else is materially based. It's a very materialistic religion. So continuing on here.
Tyler is making it clear that he is responding to all of these tweets or X's, whatever we're supposed to call them, because there have been people, he says, that have flat out accused the organization of having a hand in Charlie's murder. He doesn't share when or where exactly that happened. I think people feel you're being dishonorable by not questioning the narrative, but I haven't read anybody that's explicitly accused them of murder. In fact, the tweets that he's responding to all seem to be pretty fair, in my opinion, Now, regarding...
Okay, but let's put it this way. Now, I don't even know if Charlie Kirk is dead or not. I don't like all the things I said in the beginning of the voiceover of this thing. Like, we don't know. Like, people say they know, but you don't fucking know. Like, you're sitting at home, so it's not like you're not connected to any of these people. I mean, maybe you've met them. I don't know, whatever, some of you, whatever. You've watched them on YouTube. Like, you don't fucking know, right? Like, it's just what people are presenting themselves as on social media and YouTube and things. And whatever Charlie Kirk was or wasn't, whether he's dead or not, all these things. Like, I don't know any of it. But the money that they're talking about, so there is views here, right? There is, this is a And he's an influencer, and influencers get paid. And he was going to college campuses, and we know Israel was offering people in the truth community, amongst many other influencers, thousands of dollars for every post. And going back to this comedian Bobby Lee, when he went on Joe Rogan like 10 years ago and said he got a free trip to Israel because these comedians were all being shipped over to Israel. And as soon as he got there, they were like, oh, they were paying for everything, but he had to tweet out things, right? He was supposed to post something on social media every day about how great the country was. They were telling him what to say. They were literally saying, we're buying you right fucking now. And so they're that out front with their fucking propaganda bullshit. And Bibi Netanyahu said that we have to go and he's talking to a bunch of American influencers, probably all of them being paid by him or by somebody that's supporting Israel. And he said we have to go and take over TikTok. We bought TikTok, and we have to pressure Elon, and we have to wage this propaganda war, which he's fucking lost. Like, that guy's done. He's done with America. He's just annoying. When you look at the guy and hear him talk, he's off-putting, right? But in all that, if Charlie Kirk was editing or wanted to, and this is coming up because she gets into this as a big part coming up in just a little bit here. But, if he was going to audit the, the millions of dollars, $100 million a year that they were getting, and he was finding out what she's accusing them of is laundering money through construction projects, she's going to say a bunch of shit about that in a second here. And so if that's going to happen, right, if that's what, is happening, and $2 million a year in donor money, that's things that people get killed over, right? People get killed by foreign governments who, they're going to turn on. I mean, political shills, whatever it is. Like, there's lots of motives here. And Turning Point has the biggest motive. Now, I said right off the bat, who benefited? Trump benefited, right? Trump benefited immediately. And Netanyahu benefited. And Charlie's wife, in a sense, benefited from, if she wanted to take over and be the face of the organization, which she seems to not want to now. She's in charge of it. And the organization is not doing as well as it did under Charlie. But if you were laundering money through the organization and Charlie uncovered it, like if that's actually real, that's a motive, right? Whoever you are, if you're stealing millions of dollars and you could go to jail for embezzling and be outed in your reputation, I mean, your life would be over if you got caught doing that. So him auditing something if there's actual fucking criminal behavior, and then all the money that was not going to be coming in from Israeli supporting sources, $2 million donation just from one person on all these other people that were squeezing him because he was friends with, or he was connecting with these, so-called anti-Israeli people who are just offering mild criticism. Those are all motives for murder, right? It's all motives for murder.
The missing campus footage, there is a user that begged Tyler to file an FOIA request, and that user wrote this. Please, I beg you, focus on getting the security footage of the sequence pre-jump off the Losi building where we can see Robinson in shot position and corroborate the story. Like file an FOIA, get that footage, keep it simple. And he responds and he says, guys, there's camera footage all over that campus that the police have, plus all the cameras that we had. They likely won't release it until the trial. Now, there's just one problem with that narrative, right?
Okay, so she's going to go on to say here that they're trying to convict somebody by not releasing footage. But why would they do that? Because that usually means the person's innocent, right? If releasing the footage is going to make it so they can't convict the guy, then that footage hurts the official story. So that's her point of view there. There's one more thing here.
Demonic spirits, because they're rightfully asking questions of the most high-profile political assassination since JFK. It's just not going to work.
The most high-profile assassination since JFK. So again, she's calling it a political assassination. They can't call him a martyr because this is all about politics. And he was debating that girl. It's about politics. It's got politicians up there. It's about electing Trump and protecting Israel and shilling for Israel. And that's his whole thing, right? But, it's not an assassination if it's just one dude. Like, if you're going to call it an assassination, then there's a bigger conspiracy here. And that conspiracy would start with who benefits from his death. And we know, like I've listed them over and over again, everybody knows who that is. Turning Point's a part of that. And if it is more than that, then why is his wife not going after it? His so-called wife in, air quotes. Okay, so we're getting into the last kind of big reveal here.
All right, you guys. So how are we supposed to honor Charlie, right? You honor Charlie, of course, by donating to Turning Point USA and shutting up and trusting the feds. Don't question anything because it's just not right or whatever. You shouldn't even question the things that Charlie was questioning, right? The spin is in. I got really annoyed last night going through. Somebody tagged me and said, you see Alex Clark posted, and tried to make it seem like I lied about the new Doge department when I literally shared the email from Charlie. They're even using this kind of like, I could call it Christian slop, okay? Because what they're serving up to you is, well, if you're a good Christian, you shouldn't do this. Like they're kind of saying, it's demonic. You're possessed by a demon if you want to pursue truth. Said literally no one ever but Satan incarnate, okay?
Jesus Christ. The religious battles here stuff, the infighting is always great. I'm really enjoying this part. And, Turning Point is fucked. Like, because, again, the energy is always, where's the energy on the internet? It's in conspiracy. It's in digging deep. It's in doing your own research. People all say that, and they don't do it, but they say it, or the research sucks. But still, it's what people are into now, right? It's about questioning the official story. And it's what Trump did the whole time. Trump said fake news. First Hillary Clinton said fake news. Anything that was not endorsed by CNN, MSNBC was fake news. Then Trump hijacked that term, and he said this is all fake news. And, there was this element about it. And then, of course, Fox News sucks, but they're kind of all leaning into that. And the right-wing people are always been suspicious of the liberal media and also big government, federal government. So there are people that are your core demographic, and they're not there because they like Turning Point, they like Charlie, right? And so those are your fans. Those are the people that are going to support you. Those are people that are going to be a part of your organization. And you're now in a shitty position because those people are turning on Israel, and Israel is your primary bankroller, and people are realizing that Trump is a piece of shit. And so there's that element, right? And so he's, people are aware of this. And so this non-stupid ones, the less stupid, they're still from Dumbfuckistan because they fell for it in the first fucking place, right? But the people who are leaving Dumbfuckistan, where the earth is flat, and what did I say? The earth is flat. So, this MAGA thing. And so, you're going against that. You're trying to stop those people from asking questions and saying you're wrong to do it. And that's the worst thing you can do. Those are the people that you got to win over. You've been pandering to those people for a long time. They're doing what Kash Patel did and what Pam Bondi did when they said there's nothing to see here with Jeffrey Epstein. Are you fucking serious? And so that's what they're all saying now. And I knew this was going to fucking happen. And you guys go back when I said, when Trump gets in or whatever it is, he can't run with a lot of these things, right? Because, no politician ever can follow through on their promises. And especially for Trump, because he was Jeffrey Epstein's best buddy, his perv bro, right? So like he can't follow through on that, right? Okay, so I don't want to get bogged down too much in this, but here's the other big reveal here. I want to maybe do 2 or 3 more clips here.
That are critiquing us for investigating the murder are not critiquing themselves and not holding a mirror to themselves. Anyways, Alex has decided to share a total half-truth PR spin on another tweet from Tyler Boyer, where he responds to someone asking about Charlie establishing a Doge department. Again, we presented that to the public. We showed the internal email, the internal memo that went out. It was Charlie in his own words. We showed the whole email. I didn't read the paragraph where he announced that Justin Strife would be the COO, but we read the entirety related to the Doge department. And here's what Tyler says about that. He says, she took a sentence and made something up. TPUSA does an audit every year, always has. Charlie constantly look for ways to make everything we do more efficient. That's TPUSA. It operates 8 times more effectively than any other similar operation. So what did I make up when I shared an email and Charlie said he wanted to establish a new Doge department? Why would he call it new if he was doing it every year? And wow, what foresight you had as a company that's been around for like 10 years or more, maybe even more 10 years, that you were doing Doge since the beginning? No, you're conflating, and it's dishonest. It's dishonest. The audit has F all.
Okay, so I covered this before. She presented a document, and so this guy's confirming the document's real. And so 8 days before Charlie Kirk was supposedly murdered, this whole thing, right? He was freaked out by the fact that the money was disappearing. Now, she's going to accuse them of money laundering here in a moment. And so, like, this is a nightmare for them because that's, I mean, if people think you're laundering their money, this is criminal activity. And this could go south on them quickly. I can't imagine Trump administration would investigate them. But, you know, whatever. However this goes down. But her just bringing this up, of course, she's getting millions of views on this. Like, you know, they're getting nothing on these things that they're saying. But what Charlie Kirk said was that he wanted to do an internal audit, a Doge-like audit on TPSU because he didn't want to know where all the money was going. Because he wasn't, you know, whatever. And she said they had conversations about it on top of it. So that's bad. Fucking, that's something that's murder-worthy there, right? If people are going to go to jail.
Okay, F all to do with Doge. The audit is what 501c3s are instructed to do. Audit, get an independent auditor and audit yourselves, or else the IRS will hound you. Now, when you are auditing yourselves, I will guarantee you the Clinton Foundation audited themselves annually. That does not mean that there is not corruption. It means that you're doing things that are above board from a government perspective. It does not mean that within your own organization there is not corruption. That is the reason for a Doge department, at least according to what Elon Musk said. Nobody, when he established Doge with Vivek Ramaswamy, was thinking that he was going in there because he was going to see if they're violating the IRS laws. No, I think he went in there to
what happened to Vivek?
see wasteful spending and to see where the money was going, where our tax dollars was going. That's the vibe I got. So they're relying on us to be, again, financially illiterate, to not understand how it works. I shared a 501c3 lawyer with them. So I met her in her offices with Charlie, and she explained the reasons why she said that you got to get an independent auditor. I actually think that for organizations of a certain size, you're required by law to do an annual audit if you're 501c3. I think it's state by state that guides that. But to present this like this means we're above board, I have a feeling some people are going to die on that sword, because the reality is that big companies, inevitably, you will find corruption. And I'm hearing some stuff, okay? A lot of contractors, that's something that you can do. As just one example, that's completely legal, but utterly immoral, is if you're outsourcing all of the millions of dollars to contractors and you're getting kickbacks. That's just one example, okay? So I take money from donors, and then I show that I'm paying out to a contractor who doesn't work for Turning Point USA, but that contractor is then somehow paying me back. That would be something.
Yeah, money laundering it's called. So they're money laundering, and, you know, if those people are doing it, that's murder-worthy, right? Like what she's accusing them of. Like, that's something where...
Wouldn't flag the IRS, but then would flag a CEO and a Doge department if they started looking at where the money was spending. I hope that clarifies matters. Now, shifting gears.
Okay, so, you know, there's that. So, I mean, there might be a few other things to get to. Well, this is more than enough. But, you know, she's going all in. Like, she's accusing them of stealing money from not only donors, but Charlie Kirk himself. That these people were stealing money, and that, you know, he wanted to find out where the money was going. He would have found out. He would have been pissed. You know, he's selling his soul to Israel to get all this money, $2 million donations, and then find out these motherfuckers in his organization are stealing money. And Erika Kirk saying, nobody's going anywhere. We're going to keep all these people on staff. They don't have the money coming in. Their fucking view count's down. They made a fucking, like a killing on his funeral, on his death, financially. They got a lot of donor money, right? Where everyone can see that. But in all that, you know, it's fucked, right? And so, like, things are going south. Like, things aren't going well.
Only slightly. I don't often or really ever speak about my faith journey, right? Because I'm still on it.
Okay, so there she gets into her faith here. Okay, so I'm editing this, and forgot about something I really wanted to cover. This is one of my favorite moments in this thing. This is where she confronts Trump. And I can't believe I forgot this. Right? But, it's a long thing. There's a lot here. But here it is.
Again, published September 18th. Alex Clark was about to head to the airport for a work trip to celebrate the first anniversary of her podcast when she heard the news. Her boss, Charlie Kirk, had been shot. She says, quote, "The very first thought that popped into my head was, I'm so glad that Charlie knew Jesus," said Clark, 32, who hosts the Maha-friendly podcast Culture Apothecary for Turning Point USA. The second thought was, what will happen now? And the third thought was, thank God Trump is president. I don't know. People around the world didn't even know Charlie. Okay. Third thought, thank God Trump is president. Like MAGA. Did you go MAGA? Did you go like, I'm glad he knows the Lord, and then MAGA? What are we missing here? Does that feel okay at all? Goes on to say she praises the FBI director Kash Patel and his deputy Dan Bongino for their leadership in the hunt for the suspect. What's so crazy is that we have them in office because of Charlie, Clark said. So honor the feds, quick pick outside, and also MAGA, MAGA hard. That is like, I'm sorry, I get it. Everybody grieves differently, okay?
Yeah, that's not grief, right?
But not that way. The last thought that I had as I spent days crying, okay, had difficulty physically pulling myself out of bed, felt like I was being a bad mother, was, man, I'm sure glad Donald Trump is president. MAGA. I didn't feel that way. In fact, I was angry. I remember feeling angry when Trump moved to kind of like do a same time post, Bibi Netanyahu, and then like publishes a picture of Charlie with an Israeli flag behind. Was pretty angry about that. I thought, yuck, that's gross. Have you no dignity and respect? Post a picture of him with his family, trying to like already sow seeds into people's minds that like, no, he like kind of died for Israel, loved Israel so much, this would be appropriate, especially in the context of the message I just read to you. It was gross. But anyways, I don't know why. I don't want to.
Okay, so you get the idea here. I'm glad I remembered this because this was probably, to me, the key moment because she's kind of bailing on Trump slowly. Like they'd all have trouble doing that because to fully bail on Trump, you have to go back to the stuff that he did at the end of his first term with the way he handled the Operation Warp Speed. I mean, if you like, he fucked that thing whole up. That should have been it. That was the deal breaker there. And then he disavowed all his followers and supporters on January 6th, the ones he led up there and all that shit. And he showed what a piece of shit, disloyal person he is. So like that should have been. I mean, for me, it was a defining moment. Like Trump was entertaining his first 3.5 years. They're all the same, but he was better because he did shit other people didn't do. So in terms of the show, in terms of entertainment value, he was great. But that's when he showed like he was a real piece of shit. Like not to me. Like he didn't do anything to me. But he did stuff to his followers. And remember how the QBs were all disillusioned. And they all should have bailed on him then. At least not treat him like he was a messiah. I mean, that's what this is about, treating him like he was a messiah. And so, or Jesus reincarnated. And so, second coming. And all these people supported him. And as bad as Kamala was, that doesn't, the kind of support they gave him was over the top. Candice Owens, and all the rest. When you're that wrong about something, you can't, walk it back, right? And now the Kirks, I mean, all the stuff and the way this Israel thing is turned, what does Erika know? Like she's kept silent about this stuff, although she forgave a guy who had nothing to do with this day. So, like what does she know? How is she complicit? And that's probably one of the next, at some point Candice is going to go there. And I'll be looking out for her having her 666 post. All right, so this was the last clip that I did, but I'm putting it in front of two other ones. One's kind of funny here, and then this last little bit, and then I do some voiceover about this stuff. You know, a sort of more comprehensive view of it. So there's a pastor here. It's kind of funny. That's why I'm showing you.
Is that this has something to do with Megyn Kelly. You're probably not thinking Paul wrote this letter to the Corinthians because there's a point that you listen.
Why am I bringing this up? Because I was watching an interview with Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, and this is what they said. Everyone under 30 in America is against Israel. The older generation's not, because we've seen the Six-Day War in 1967. There wasn't a narrative that was so prevalent right now with foolish people that are so deceived, like a Candice Owens and like a Nick Fuentes, and young people are eating that up, and they're changing their philosophy on what these...
Okay, so I don't know who this guy is. I mean, I don't know how, I'd like to see the camera turn the other way and see the 10 people who are watching this, right? One of whom sent this to Candice Owens. But this guy's got a fucking Hawaiian shirt on. And it looks pretty like, you know, there seems to be some, maybe a reflection. I don't know what that stained glass thing is behind him. Like, is that a reflection from, who knows what that is? So it might be an actual church that this guy's in, right? But it could be like a gymnasium, like they said before, whatever. But this guy's an Israeli shill, but we don't know who he is. Like, he's not somebody famous. And not somebody necessarily connected to Charlie Kirk. But the Six-Day War was, you know, that was where they sunk the USS Liberty. And Al Jazeera has a documentary, if you haven't seen it. The USS Liberty and the Navy men who were on that ship, it was a information gathering ship. It had these big satellites on it. And so whatever this was, it was shortly after JFK's death. And the USS Liberty was going to figure out what was happening with the Six-Day War. Israel said they were attacked by all of their neighbors. And Israel went on a multi-front war like they're fighting now. And it turned out it was them that was the aggressor. But that's not the way that, you know, they played it or America played it. But they didn't want America finding that out by spying on their, you know, whatever it was. And they decided to sink the ship and blame it on Egypt. So America would get involved with the war. That's the kind of fucking friend they are, right? Sinking the ship with American Navy men on it, a ship that doesn't have any weaponry, right? It's just got satellites. It's an information gathering ship. And they hit it with a torpedo and it just wouldn't fucking sink. And then they realized they were fucked because the information got back that they were under attack, and that was Israel. And they said they made a mistake. And they said, so can we help you guys out? They brought helicopters out there, you know, American helicopters that we're giving them. And LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, when he first heard the ship was under attack, he said, scramble the jets, go bomb the shit out of Egypt. So he was going to war. He was already acting in war. And then when he found it was Israel, he turned the ship, the planes around because he knew that Israel, you know, probably had a lot to do with JFK being killed because JFK was going against Israel. So that, you know, that's where the similarities would be there, right? And then he, you know, Israel, as they went into a negotiation, he found that somebody was spying on Israel because they were in this now conflict. Now, all the guys who were on that ship, they hate Israel and they feel completely like they were, you know, America downplayed this whole thing because they didn't want to make it into a scandal because American citizens realized that Israel bombed our ship on purpose and then pretended it was an accident and was trying to lure us into war. You know, so American media just went silent on that shit, right? So to say that the Six-Day War, this is why people are against Israel. And this shit's coming out because of the internet. And I don't know, I think it's intentional. Like, I think it's, you know, it's not happening accidentally, right? But anyways.
These people say that do not base your ideology unless somebody has a Bible open. That is where your ideology comes from. You're going to be like that.
Yeah, but I mean, she's doing this because the guy's fucking sounds a little bit crazy. So he gets in, he shills for Israel. I don't, you know, need to show you more of this. Let me switch over to voiceover here. Okay, so I was already kind of done with the Candice Owens part of this video, but I did a voiceover that you're about to hear, and somehow it's clicking out of this video, and I unintentionally started looking at some of the comments, the top comments. And one of the commenters quoted something she said here at the end.
Closing and going back to France, if I found Brigitte's penis, I will find who killed Charlie Kirk. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
And so somebody wrote mic drop. This is her talking about the French president's wife being a dude. And you know, you ain't finding Charlie Kirk's killer, right? This leads into what I'm going to say in the voiceover, right? This is all pointless. But you really didn't find Brigitte's penis, you know, because you think you found it, right? And I don't know how she covered this and how much proof there is that Brigitte is a man. But it's not acknowledged by everybody, right? I mean, you know, if you saw it, there'd be something else, and, you know, that is whatever it is. But she's going to say that she finds this killer. You know, is that the person pulled the trigger, or is the organization behind it and all the people that colluded? I mean, you know, that's not going to happen. I mean, even, like, you could speculate about that, but the proof isn't available to you, all the people involved, but whatever. You know, it's just there's a pointlessness here, which I get into in the voiceover. But that's kind of funny. But anyways. All right, so just to sort of wrap this thing up, this is probably something that would be better at the beginning of a video, but whatever. You know, I've talked about this in the past. I did an audio about how I have seen the world saved. I don't know, probably thousands of times, right? Read about it, you know, fictionally in books and TV shows. You know, how someone saves the world. Like, if you're going to make a superhero movie, you're going to make a big budget, whatever it is. Saving the world is like usually like bare minimum kind of thing you have to throw out there. And so the other thing is changing the world. You hear people say, I want to change the world. And everybody changes the world one way or another, right? Very few people think about or talking about just making the world a better place. And in the Sajmark meditation that I do, that is the bare minimum goal. You should, you know, your life is a failure. I mean, they don't say it that way. I'll say it, but they don't. But, you know, it is. If you don't make the world better. At least at the bare minimum, even less than that, don't make it worse, right? Have no effect on the world. Zero effect. And it isn't about pollution. It isn't about politics. It isn't about any of these things that people think about. It's about what's inside of you and your thoughts and your energy. Like, you exude an energy. There's a thing called spiritual condition. It's the energy that you exude. And it's also your thoughts and your words, but that's like less than. You know, your actions. Yeah, sure, that's all part of it. But it really stems from, it's like you radiate these finer particles, like subatomic particles, divine particles, and, you know, love being the number one thing. The Sajmark system, you get doused with God's love in the form of transmission, the energy that's given in the sittings. And, you know, you go to these gatherings and you go out into the world and you're now radiating that energy. Just because you've received it, you're passing it on to other people. And so there's a responsibility there. I mean, you know, it's still there for me now, but lesser so, because we used to have these wonderful spiritual gatherings. Sometimes the master of the system would be there, sometimes we wouldn't. There were some birthday gatherings, and then just the weekly meditations. I'd go to group meditation on Sunday and to get these individual sittings. And the energy I would receive, I could feel it. And, you know, of course, we do this 9 p.m. prayer, which is you pray 15 minutes that everyone in the world comes to spirituality. And I feel the energy, you know, moving. And, you know, you become a conduit for this energy, right? And so you might even be a piece of shit person, but with heavy samskaras and maybe not so great internal condition, but you can still act as a conduit in this way. And so this is what's meant by you're improving the spiritual energy and the consciousness of the planet, right? And so I have a complete different experience and understanding of what it's meant to be to make the world a better place. And when I talk about people and evaluate them, It's about the spiritual energy that they exude. Of course, I'm not meeting them personally, which of course is the best way. But in terms of videos, in terms of all of this stuff that you watch and you see, and the effect people have, there is a spiritual energy to it, right? It has a spiritual effect. Like sometimes you see a movie or documentary or tell a story, and it moves you to tears in some way where it touches you in a deep spiritual feeling way, like touches your heart, right? What people say, that touched my heart. So that's my evaluation when I say Charlie Kirk is not spiritual, right? It's the energy, that God energy that you feel, and you go to a spiritual place and you meet a spiritual person and they radiate this energy, right? And the people that are on a higher level, they radiate this energy in a way that, it transforms people around them. It pulls people up. And so that's the bare minimum as a spiritual person. And it takes a lot to do that, to become a person like that. And what it takes is not getting involved with low-level consciousness bullshit stuff. Not being sucked into it if you have to experience it. Not being indulgent and wanting drama with, low-level people, feeling hatred, wanting to feel anger, making choices to engage in low-brow, low-vibrational activity, which people love to fucking do, right? See, the problem that most people have, they say, well, be a good person, and you can rationalize all those kind of things. You think about, like, the 10 Commandments, right? What are they? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not, some of the things that you can rationalize stealing. Most people aren't going to kill anybody unless they're a cop or they're at war, Most people aren't murderous, right? Don't covet your neighbor's wife and possessions, these things. Mostly men's stuff, right? Because it was written at a time where, like, women weren't really considered people, these things. But, those are, like, minimal, and they're all about what you shouldn't do, right? They don't tell you what you should do because it's a lower level thing. It's it's to keep people from engaging in basically animalistic criminal behaviors, because that's where people are, and most people are at, even more so now. But not doing those things and are just like, those are just basically things that keep you from, those are criminal level things, most of them, right? Or pretty immoral things. And now that stuff isn't even, like the commandments, most people violate them all the time, right? And, you can say, you look at people stealing and it's pretty much across the board, right? People are, you don't want to call it like out and out theft, but people are manipulating other people out of their money, all this stuff to do with gambling, rigged systems of gambling, all the things that are going out there, all the bullshit people say, even like clickbaity stuff. I mean, it's all a form of, immoral behavior. So we're going in the wrong direction. I think most people realize we're going in the wrong direction. Like, people are getting worse. And when you evaluate a system, it's whether people are getting better or getting worse. Like, if you're a patient in a hospital or doctor or medical system, our people are being made healthy by our medical system? No. People are made worse by our medical system. These medications with their side effects, and most people get more sicker when they engage with the allopathic medical system. And they don't even know this. And then the food system. Most people who eat the typical foods, don't really do research on how to have a healthy diet, are getting sicker because of the foods. And even if you're doing a healthy diet, the food isn't as organic. It used to be all food was organic, right? So that the organic term came when chemicals started to be used, better living through chemistry. As a kid, they had this thing, DDT is good for me. Like, it was a fucking poison, right? Like, they had all this stuff. And so, everything's degraded, and it's making the world worse. In terms of pollution, in terms of, the morality of people, in terms of the, just people in general. People are weaker and more entitled and stupider, and technology isn't helping people either. It's making, we're hemorrhaging vocabulary words, and it's all the things that people see on the internet, all the degraded things, all the way it's making people weaker and softer. So, we're going in the wrong direction. So I don't know who could argue that that's not the case. And if you're just asleep if you think that things are getting better. And the older you are, the more you see it, like just the degradation of humanity, going in the wrong fucking direction. So, I said this, I made a video and I said, why would God want to save this system? Why would God want to save America or the world the way it is now? Like, what would be the motivation? Not on why you would want it, but why would God? And nobody could give me an answer. And the answers would all be bullshit if people give it to you. They'd be all stupid answers. So if we all kind of agree that we're going in the wrong direction, I mean, it's not just the possibility of World War III, or it's just like everything is, in terms of people are getting worse, and, the system is getting worse, and it's all going in evil direction. It's all going away from God. And I'm not talking about religion, because religions suck, but that's a part of it. People are leaving religions, and people don't think about God. And, I'm not talking about reading scripture when I talk about, anybody could do that shit, right? Anybody could drone on about God, but how many people can exude godly energy? And so, my evaluation is so much different because of the opportunities afforded to me, especially by the Sajmark meditation, the experiences to meet, real spiritual master, someone who's mastered himself spiritually, someone who's reached the highest goal, spiritual goal that we can achieve here on planet Earth, which is to merge back into the source. And those things are, while people can do that, like and not just people who are like at that level, but people who are just getting better. Sajmark's system, when it was functioning well, people were getting better. And I would see people every year. We'd go to a gathering, they would be from all over the country. Some people, I met foreign people. I might see people once every 5 years. I talk to people, connect with people, And you could see that they were better. My older brother was engaged in the meditative process. I could see he was doing better, that it was affecting him positively. So, I saw that. That's something to be hopeful about, right? But, for the most part, that's the anomaly. Like, that can happen, but people aren't choosing that, right? And it's always available to people. People can always find God and find their soul's path and get on a spiritual path. And people think, wow, that person's great. No, that's mandatory bullshit, right? Not bullshit. That's mandatory. Part of your life is to have a spiritual aspect to your life. Like, I didn't think about when I was younger. It took me a while to understand that. I was like 29 years old, 30. But then I realized, oh shit, I should have been doing this all along, right? Like, I was religious when I was a kid, and that's important, so there was something there. But I had, between the ages of 14, 15, I was in high school, I started using drugs, and then just being a piece of shit, punky kind of kid until I was in my 30s. And I dabbled in things even then, things that I, that were, I wasn't thinking about being as a godly thing, but, things that were ultimately, a part of this. Sometimes you do things, you pursue things that are divine without thinking about it as being a godly thing, right? Like some levels of higher consciousness that are there. But, for the most part, I didn't understand that it's like a mandatory component of your life that you have a connection with God, because you can't exist without God. Your soul is, your body is animated by the divine essence of your soul, which is the creator of your existence, right? The divine aspect of your being. And so when I look at all the things that are happening here and what I've covered here for the past so many years, I can clearly see that, not only is the system not worth saving, it can't be saved, and it shouldn't be saved. And so, thinking about things in terms of good or bad, I mean, we think about all the things that we see that are happening that would create the circumstances behind a collapsed America, a collapsed system, World War III, whatever it is, massive die-off of humanity, human tragedies, things that we would avoid, things that superheroes in movies are preventing on a daily basis when they write these, oh, that person's, you got to save the world, right? The superhero's going to save the world. The Avengers Endgame, which was seen globally, this massive movie about avoiding half the population being wiped out across the universe. It isn't really a bad, why would that be such a bad thing, right? There's people who pray for that. There's conservatives that wish all the liberals would die, and liberals that wish all the conservatives would die, and there's things like that. But I'm talking about, it isn't a real loss to the planet. The majority of people are not really, it would be kind of better for the planet, right? It'd be better for the environment, better for animals, better for just in general. And so, our understanding of what we think are good and bad really should be based in what does God want to happen. But people don't want to talk to God. They don't want to. You can connect with God, and you can, God. You can pray to God, and you say, God, show me what I should do. Every day, you can do that. Like you can do that right now if you're struggling with something. You can ask God, what should I do? And people don't want to do that because they don't want to know what God thinks, right? That's why people don't do that. People don't want to know what God thinks. People don't want to do what God wants them to do. It would be easy if they did, right? Because God is very accessible. God's everywhere and certainly inside you. But people don't want to ask those questions. What should I do here, Lord? What should I do here, God? People claim to be religious, but when God answers them, they're like, hey, that's not what I want, right? That doesn't sound like something I want to do, right? That doesn't sound like something that goes with my, who I am as a person. So they don't do it, right? They don't engage in that process because of worry that God will tell them something they don't want to hear, which means that there's some kind of consciousness that people know that they're doing things that God wouldn't want them to do. But they'll often talk about it like God, is somehow responsible. Like this thing with Charlie Kirk, and this is what Charlie wanted, and this is what Jesus would want, and this kind of bullshit. They talk about these things, but they don't ask God directly because they don't want the answer, which shows you how fucked we are. And so in all that, we have these things that people get interested in, and they're mostly a distraction. And, I cover them because, it's a vehicle for for me to disseminate the information about spiritual stuff that I know about, that I feel obligated to share and pass on to other people because that's what the fuck you're supposed to do, regardless of the outcome, right? But, I've covered these events time and time again, and I can say the truth community, which sucks, it's been invaded by right-wing dopes and just all of it. And then censorship has played a part in it and all of this stuff. But it's, been degraded. It was better before, but it wasn't great then. But even in that, exposing this information and coming up with people seeking the truth, like on Charlie Kirk's death, for example, you're never going to get the truth. I've said this over and over again recently. It's pointless to think that's the end game or the end goal. It's mostly about going down the rabbit hole, and so much so that the powers that be are now including rabbit hole type of stuff in every, truth or conspiracy theory stuff and clues and Easter eggs or whatever they call it in every one of these stories that they concoct, because, that's part of the whole thing. They've learned to use the truth community against itself because, you're not getting the truth. You're just chasing going down the rabbit hole, right? But what you do find when you look into these things, right, not just the people who are involved, but all the, dumb fuckistan people commenting, all the, bad reporting, all the people taking advantage and, making money off the thing, clickbaity type of stuff, all the people, I saw this with the QAnon people, how they would, and a lot of them weren't QAnon people, but they used they pandered to a QAnon audience just to make bank and, put out these sensationalistic bullshit things that they knew was disinformation. But as you dive down the rabbit hole, any of these things and all of these things, what do you see? You see that people are kind of worse than you thought, right? Like people always disappoint you. Like it's just, in terms of what they're involved in, what they care about, it's, it's not affirming. And, because it's always worse than you thought. Like the deeper you go, the more depravity you find. And it's not just like I said with the people involved. It's not just like Charlie Kirk and his wife and the, all this stuff and just how degraded it is and how like it's just wrong. And Trump and every liberal thing and every little, whatever you look at, there's people who are doing good things and nice people and people who are just, punch the clock every day and contribute in some way or another. And, that's part of it. But for the most part, people, are negative and just it's bad. Like most most things you see, most movies and TV shows, they're just not worth watching. I mean, once you kind of evolve a little bit, they're just, lowbrow stuff. I mean, I start watching shit all the time. And, I was looking at a movie last night. It was called The Search Party, and I had watched it before, and I didn't know it. And I taped it was on TV. I started watching it. And I watched it before. It was a comedy. And I'm like, these people are fucking really annoying and self-destructive. It was like some buddy who his friends blew up his wedding. It was a stupid fucking thing. But I'm like, I watched like 5 minutes. I'm like, this sucks. The people are just so degraded. But before I could sit through the whole thing, like some time ago, I don't know when I saw the movie. It wasn't memorable. I don't know if I sat through it then, but I probably could have sat through it more. But more often than not, I see things and I'm like, this is just fucking bad. It's just so shitty. Like, it's just so low consciousness, so stupid. Most of the stuff out there just panders to dumb fuckistan. Like, people are getting stupider, and they are, the powers that be are feeding into it, and people are running towards stupidity, right? And, eating foods and taking medicines and, taking drugs and, recreational drugs and just not exercising, doing things that make you stupider, right? That make you lower functioning, and just quitting on life and just, giving up on becoming anything, and just being a fucking big bag of shit, right? Just like just having no purpose, no goals, no whatever it is. And so, like, that's what you see. Like, the more you look into it, people are going the wrong direction. And I've, watched something that could have been really helpful to people, the Sajmark meditation that I do. I watch it shit the bed with the current dope that runs it. And, I just, all those things. It's like, these people who I knew who are spiritual people could not able to navigate it. People had spiritual tendencies being brought down by the thing, confused, or just going along with something. Whenever a spiritual movement turns into a religion, it's a bad thing, right? That happened to every one of these spiritual movements. When Jesus was alive, Christianity was a spiritual thing. Maybe with St. Paul and some of the other disciples that were there. Maybe the first 100 years after Jesus was alive, his essence was still kind of there, and it wasn't that he didn't do all that. I mean, it was a small movement. It wasn't, the spiritual aspect of Christianity is very limited, even when Jesus was alive. But, like, people think it was some great thing. It was like, it was a drop in the bucket compared to, other spiritual movements. It wasn't that great that people think it is, that they've been indoctrinated with. But even with that, it was still a spiritual movement that became a religion. And it keeps on getting worse because it keeps on getting more perverted and more divided and more, like, just wrong, right? And so that's where we're at. And so, I see things differently than these other people, because people think that you're going to, like, something's going to change if you figure out the truth behind Charlie Kirk or, Jeffrey Epstein or Trump or, or whatever these things are. But it's just, all of it, like, I guess it's better than just sitting there like a sheeple, looking through the lies. But, like, yeah, you're combing through the lies, but do you ever seek the truth? Like, really seek the truth. Like, what is the truth? Like, what's your purpose? Why are you here? What is the purpose of humanity? What's the, what should you be doing? All right, this is what you shouldn't be doing. I cover what people shouldn't be doing, and that's what people want to watch. When I talk about what people should be doing, or what, how to find out how you should be doing it. Like I just said, this thing, you can ask God anytime you want what I should do. What should I do here? You're in a crisis, you're concerned about it, ask God what you should do. And if you do listen to God and you do connect to God, and God tells you something, you realize it's the right thing, and it changes you, then you don't give it up. You do it more. You connect with your soul. Why don't you connect? If you believe you have a soul, why aren't you trying to connect with it in some way? And so, I could say this over and over again, and people are like, yeah, it sounds good, and then just, whatever, because that's where people are at. And so none of this stuff matters. It's like, it's a distraction. It's a, maybe it helps you change a little bit in terms of, like, all right, you're indoctrinated to a system, then you realize what the system's about, and then you're like, your consciousness has changed a little bit. It's positive in some way where you're starting to think for yourself. And then what can you do to add to that, right? And most people, it's they're not going to do anything, right? Like that, it just dies. And so, like, this is why our system's going to end. I cover some comments here. I did this last night, so let me wrap this up here and move to the last voiceover here from yesterday. Those watching this on the Journey series, you've already heard the comments 2 voiceovers ago, but here it is. Okay, this is Monday, October 6th. I want to do some comment. At least there's a few comments here. There's 2 comments, I think. The first one was to Erika and TPUSA hemorrhaging viewers. TPUS gay. Ghoulish Trump's Gaza, whatever. I'll have to start calling it that. Some person wrote, your foul language ruined the whole documentary. First of all, referring to my video as a documentary is weird, but the that was the one I think where I was swearing because I was trying to catch the chick, which they went in on their own. I should say that at the beginning of the video tomorrow as well. My chicken, the hen and the chicks went in on their own, thank God. But one of them jumped out of the nest box, probably the shitty one. But at least that's happening. So this person, desperate Erika Kirk and TPS want you to merch up for Charlie's big day. And then something to do with Ben Shapiro. This person writes, sounds like someone has TDS. Are you fucking dope still saying that shit, right? Right now, Trump is clearly fucking a nightmare that the Democrats said he was, right? This happened with the gay movement, with the gender movement. So there were people who said to Christians and right-wing people, I mean, the gay community was saying, born that way, right? We're born this way. You can't change us. You can't bring us to camp and, whatever. And that's what they're saying to the Christians for years, which I agree with. It seems like most of the people, it's not always the case, but most of the people who are gay are born that way. Some of them are, might be because of like sexual abuse or something like that. But either way, that was what they're saying. And then after the big movement in 2015 and 16, there was this hyper-liberal movement, and they said everybody's a little bit gay. So they changed the story that everyone's on this. It's like a spectrum. You're on some sort of a spectrum. You're on it's like autism. It's everyone's a little bit gay. That's what they're saying, and so. You said this thing to the Christian right-wing people that were born this way. But then when you got more power, you were like, well, let's change the definition. And so it's the same thing with the TDS stuff, right? That when Trump wasn't going full dictator like he is, and, no one thought he was going to, at least I didn't think he was going to go full Agenda 2025. But he's way worse than anybody imagined. Like, as bad as the left said Trump was going to be, he's fucking worse now. And so you could get rid of that TDS because you guys are the only ones who have TDS. The left, they didn't have anything else, and they didn't block Trump, and they went along with it. They're culpable in lots of different ways. But their TDS is now completely justified. And you guys are still doing this stuff. I mean, you're like these really stupid people. Like, what do you need to understand that Trump's a fucking nightmare? And he's not a nightmare on his own. He's a nightmare because he's working for the so-called elite that you guys hate so much. Sounds like someone has TDS and is unwilling to admit it. Yeah, you. So instead, they make a video to accuse millions of other Americans of being delusional instead. This dude clearly needs to go ride a bicycle across America for a much-needed attitude adjustment. Peace, world, peace. So excellent comment from that dude. As of now, that's all the bad comments. You know, I might have something more to say. I'll leave this thing open, and then I'll save it just in case I get other comments or something else happens here. Okay, so I went shopping. I got 2 more comments to get to. And I went to Whole Foods and then somewhere else I went to. I don't know. It was whatever. And then I was listening to Candice Owens. She came on autoplay. She was like 4 minutes into her thing. I think I was listening to something. I was listening to something sports related, and really was not paying attention. Then all of a sudden, YouTube started to autoplay Candice Owens in mid sentence. She had 4 minutes into her live broadcast, and you guys have already heard my take on that, so I'm not going to comment on that here. So I'm in Whole Foods, and I'm going to check out. You know, I'm a very antisocial person, and I go to the whatever you do that thing, the conveyor belt. And I start putting my stuff up, and I say hello to the person. And the dude's holding up a piece of paper, and it says, I'm deaf. So for a second, I'm like, this is going to suck. And then I start loading everything up, and I'm like, this is fucking great. Like, I don't have to talk to this person. You know, I don't really like small talk, and plus this guy's fast because he's not having conversations with people. You know, he's like, he gets through my order really quickly. I'm like, oh, I'm going to come to this guy every time. And so, you know, I got these salsa waters, and I got 4 of them. And I held up 4 fingers, and he was like, boom, good. And then I check out, and I give him the thumbs up, and he signs off something, you know, good, whatever. I don't know what it was, but it was, you know, he was saying goodbye, and I'm like, wow, that was amazing. So that's, you know, I'm going to make sure I go to his line, and way faster than the other people who are chatting up. You know, they have a problem over there they have a lot of gabby cashiers that, you know, will talk to these people and, you know, whatever it is. Did I tell you guys about the like, I went to this other place, Fresh Market, and there was a woman with her kid, and the cashiers, like, they're getting all friendly with the kid, and, you know, and I appreciate, you know, it was like a 3 or 4 year old kid. And it was taking way longer. They doubled the amount of time it should have taken. And they have 1 cashier, and I'm just sitting there with like 2 things. And, you know, they don't have an option to just go and check out yourself, which is, you know, I usually do that when when there isn't going to be some kind of issue with something that needs to be weighed. I have to figure out what the PLU code is or those things. But they're leaving, and the mom goes, and the mom looks like my age, but I think she's just like 50. She looks really old. And she's got you know, she's older with a miracle baby, so that's even worse, right? That kind of shit. There's nothing worse than a miracle baby. It's like, oh fuck, she got a miracle baby. It's gonna be a thing. And she goes to the lady. Well, she wants a sticker, and I'm like, oh fuck, she wants a sticker. And so the lady pulls out like a bunch of stickers, and instead of just giving a sticker to the kid, she's like, it's like a whole page of stickers. And she's like, well, pick one out. And I'm like, holy shit. Are you shitting me? It might take fucking 10 minutes for this little kid to fucking pick out a fucking sticker, right? And I'm, you know, you know, my kid period of life is over. Like, I was a kid for a long time. You know, I'm always kind of, you know, I'm still maybe a little kid myself. And, you know, I raised my kids, and I worked in treatment centers, and that was enough. Like, I just, you know, I'm not going to be much of a grandparent because I don't have a relationship with my kids now, so, you know, all that stuff. But she's, and then she comes back and she goes, well, you pick it out and hand it back to me. And then she starts to check me out. The woman apologizes to me like multiple times, which I don't want an apology, but it's just like silly. Like, you just, you know, this is like, you know, time is a currency, right? There was a time when people knew the people that worked. I mean, there's so much high turnover, and nobody knows anybody. There's no regulars, you know, where people would know people in shops, and you have relationships, and you ask people about their kids. You know, people maybe grew up in your neighborhood, people you might know your whole life that owns a butcher shop. That's a whole, you know, that's a whole thing. It's a social thing. It's a good thing. We don't have that anymore. Like, we just pretty soon you guys are all going to be replaced by fucking AI robots, right? So let's not make more of this than it actually is. There's no socialization here. But anyways, with that in mind, two more comments. The first one of my viewers said, okay, so I found a hype button, but not on your video, someone else's videos. I don't know what that means. That means that YouTube is fucking me over again. That's what that means. Well, in YouTube's defense, and I don't defend YouTube often, people have said that the hype button is not always, you know, on videos. Like, it's sometimes on some videos and not on all videos. So people have seen the hype video on hype button on my video. So it's a beta thing. I don't know. I don't know if it works. My views have gone up substantially since the hype button, and also the Charlie Kirk thing. But anyways, this last comment, and I just released this video in which somebody asked me a comment about shortening my videos, and the obnoxiousness of it. I enjoy hearing your opinion, but good God, man, 3 hours? Question mark, and exclamation point, and smiley face. Again, the videos are not fucking mandatory. You do not have to watch a 3-hour video. There are long videos out there, long podcasts, that I am interested in a specific part of it. This Candice Owens thing, I'm not going to listen to the whole thing unless I find it interesting and it's something that I'm going to cover, because she has inside information and she's in a great feud right now with TPUSA, which is great to watch, which I enjoy, right? I don't expect anybody to watch a 3-hour video, and if you've watched my videos before, you know I've said this. I've covered this over and over again, and there are people out there that like the longer videos. I made a 9-hour fucking Journey series video, and it got 8,000 views. Many of those were people from my meditation, because the whole thing, it was a weird thing. 8,000 views for a Journey series is crazy. And I'm like, I don't know. How's anybody going to watch a 9,000? I didn't even know if it was going to render. I didn't know if my computer would be able to make the, video. It was 9 hours long. It probably took me 4 hours to upload, right? That's, and there was videos before it that were like 6 or 7 hours long. Like, I made a bunch of videos and people listened to it. And I don't know how they got the time, and I don't know what, but they did. And, those videos are not, I had to delete those for various reasons, because Heartfulness copyrighted me. It was a whole thing. I'll upload them again, because I had to delete all of them, but not all of them had Heartfulness stuff in there. But whatever it was, it was a long video. And so people are watching these things. People watch 3 hours of my content, like there's some thousands of people, maybe even. So it's for those people, and the fact that, I make the video as long as it goes. What I do here is more like a AM radio show than it is a podcast. But either way, they still are long form, oftentimes multiple hours long, and you don't have to listen to it all, right? And you might listen over a couple days if it's worth it. I don't know. It's a you problem, right? I'm not here to tell you how to manage your fucking time, right? Years ago, the second master of the system was, the meditation that the Sajmark system does. And for the level of spiritual approach you get from it, it's a small amount of time. And so what it is an hour meditation in the morning, preferably before dawn. Not everybody meditates that long, but that's certainly the maximum that you're supposed to do. And then you say a prayer, and we do a cleaning of the day's impressions for about half an hour. Half hour is the maximum. You then say a prayer at 9 p.m. for everyone else in the world to come to spirituality. Almost nobody fucking did that, because it was for other people, I guess. I don't know. And, some people did work. They gave sittings and, these other things, right? And then you pray before you go to bed while you're falling asleep. So that was it, like an hour and 10, an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, I don't know, right, of total time. And some guy showed up at his, whatever it is, like, talking to Babaji, or some guy was, asking about it. And the guy said, I'm just too busy to do this. And Babaji said, well, is there anybody busier than you that you know? He's like, well, the prime minister. He goes, yeah, not like that, but like, is there anybody, that you know? My boss is busier than me. He said, well, subtract your busyness from his busyness, and then give me that leftover time to meditate, right? And the guy got pissed off and he stormed off because he was, a lying sack of shit. He just didn't want to do it. He was making excuses because he wanted to fucking sell carpet or what the fuck he was doing. So anyways, that's a you problem. Like, I make the content. You decide how much you want to watch or if you want to watch it at all. That's your problem. Don't tell me about how long it fucking is. Like I'm making you fucking watch it, because I'm not. Right? I don't know what's going on in your life on your end. I'm taking care of my end. And this is what I have to do here. You do with it what you will. It's not my problem. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paravano del Sole Point for the Apocalypse. And the Ascension, and will have a blessed day and be grateful.